Coming up now is another sparkling Two Mics podcast.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the Two Mics. You can find us at the Two Mics. You can find us, of course, at IROMG, at Mike Parry 8 as well. And I must say, I was slightly taken aback by your kind of hijacking of the sports bar and producing this ridiculous card.
No, it wasn't hijacking at all.
For my dog, which you earlier put out on Twitter.
What's ridiculous about it?
Well, you earlier put it out on Twitter, so I didn't realise you were actually going to bring me the physical card as well.
Yeah.
But when you put it out on Twitter, you put it around the wrong way. You put it around sideways.
No, I didn't put it around.
Yeah, you did. Somebody had to correct it for you.
I took the picture of it, and for some unknown reason, it shot the at a 90-degree angle while I was taking the picture.
Not for some unknown reason, because you took it the wrong way.
No, I didn't take it the wrong way. I know exactly what I was doing, but the screen just spun round.
And what exactly do you mean by the inscription to MG's hound from a human who cares for you? How do you care for my dog?
Well, I do care for your dog.
What have you ever done for him?
What have I ever done for him? I've empathised with the dog. I've sympathised with the dog.
You've never even met him?
Well, I know I've never met him because you've never brought him in. You keep threatening to bring the dog in,
I don't want to
bring
him in here. No,
why not?
Because he'd eat the place out of house and
home.
He would probably chew through the cables and he'd go off air.
Well, I'm a dog whisperer and I'd be able to control him, so don't worry about that. Yeah. And the other thing is, Mike, I'm trying to embarrass you into making sure that dog has a great Christmas, okay?
How well do you know me?
I know you very well.
Exactly.
I know
Have you ever
well.
known me to be embarrassed into doing anything?
I know you very well.
Have you ever known me to be embarrassed into doing anything?
About the card, of course I put it out on Twitter to make it public that I was showing some, compassion for your dog.
That's what you're all about.
Compassion for your dog,
that's
right?
What you're all about. You're all
compassion.
about showing compassion, but not actually doing anything. I mean, like when you go out and feed the ducks, how many thousands of people have now asked for a picture of you feeding the ducks?
Video,
and you still don't produce one?
There's a video on the Porky YouTube channel, right?
No, but that doesn't show you doing it every morning.
Well, of course it doesn't show me doing it. I can't take a picture every morning.
Why not?
And you've got to remember that most of the time when I'm feeding the ducks in this sort of weather, in these sort of climates, it's pitch black.
You got a flash, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got a flash, and of course I have, but you don't see many ducks in one straight flash. And anyway, I can't take a picture of myself feeding ducks, can I?
You could take a picture of the ducks, at least
Well,
in the
I can take a picture of the ducks anywhere. That doesn't prove anything. I've got to be in the picture.
That's true, it doesn't prove anything, but people are beginning to say we don't actually believe that the duck feeding even goes on.
Okay, I will bring evidence to the fore, and we'll find out about it.
I mean, whenever I put out a picture of the abandoned dog, as you call it, taking him out for a walk, I quite often show a picture of him.
Yes.
But people know I'm taking him for a walk.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, but I mean... my main concern is that the ducks get fed. My main concern is the well-being of the ducks.
Is it?
Not to try and make out...
Not to make out that you're some kind of compassionate, caring person.
I don't need to.
Are you
I
sure?
don't need to. My conscience is absolutely clear on that one. It really is.
Right.
And so I don't have a problem. But look, there's a much, much wider issue about dogs at Christmas, okay?
Yes, there is.
Dogs do get abandoned at Christmas. We know this.
That is true.
And it's something we've got to be aware of. Very, very aware indeed. The idea...
don't buy pets for people, I think is the message.
No, there should have the old dog licence system
they did away with
reinstated. It used to cost 5 shillings.
But you know why they did away with it? They did away with it because it wasn't working.
They did.
I mean, I wish they'd have used that approach to lots of other things that don't work, and they just do away with it.
I totally agree. They did away with it because they discovered it costs more to collect the money than the money actually raised in revenues.
But also the people who wouldn't bother to get a dog licence because they might have some kind of dangerous dog or a dog that was on the band list. It meant that they just didn't get one. They've just abandoned, trying to kind of police the thing.
Yeah, but I think when people go and buy dogs at Christmas, you're absolutely right. If we introduce the dog licence situation, they have to apply for the licence first, then you get the dog.
Right.
Without the licence, you can't buy the dog.
Yeah.
That's the way of regulating it. It wasn't like that in the past. In the past, you just went along the post office and bought a dog licence for 5 shillings.
But people were still buying dogs anyway from places which weren't necessarily registered. But no, it is a very serious point, and I share your compassion on that one.
Good.
You must be very excited. Later on in the show, we're going to be talking to an expert about this story from Argentina, which has also made a couple of the front pages.
Fantastic.
This orangutan who has got what Tommy the chimp didn't get over in New York, which is the right to have... what is the phrase they've used? It's the right to have some kind of... it's basically human rights, isn't
non-human person whose landmark legal victory could set a beastly precedent, right?
Yeah.
Because this orangutan, I mean, Tommy the chimp is a chimp. That's the one in New York. I've been fighting for...
Tommy the chimp is a chimp. That's true.
I've been fighting for human rights for Tommy because he's locked up in a little concrete cage.
But he lost his case in the court, didn't he?
He lost his case in the court, but Sandra the orangutan, right, she's going to be freed because the Argentine Argentinian courts, good old Argentina, I say, on this occasion. Obviously, we've had a difference with Argentina in the past. They say that Sandra's got rights as a non-human person, OK? And that is very, very good news indeed, in my view. You can't, they're so intelligent, the old primates, orangutans, chimpanzees and all that. You can't lock them up in cages anymore.
Right.
It's cruel, barbaric, inhuman, and pretty damn disgusting in my view. And I will keep fighting. I will keep fighting for Tommy and for Sandra.
Yeah, but you haven't done anything for either of them, actually.
Yes, I have. I have. I've raised the alarum, as we would have called it in the Middle Ages, about the situation, which is a desperate situation.
So
yes, I've done plenty.
Sandra, the orangutan, is going to be transferred from a zoo to a sanctuary, which I suppose is a better way of looking after animals. But in that case, then, you must be one of those who wants to do away with all zoos, then.
Yeah, I would. I'd do away with zoos. I can get on with safari parks, like. Sorry, that sounds like. No, I was going to say I can get on with safari parks like Knowsley Park.
Yes,
because that's where I used to be taken as a kid. Which is up in the northwest near. But
Liverpool. Is that the place for a safari park? I mean, I understand going to a safari park in the country of origin of the animals, but I mean, surely a safari park in the middle of northwest Britain.
I totally agree.
It's not necessarily,
but it's better than the zoo. It's better. I mean,
it's probably better than having them in a cage. Yeah,
of course it is.
Although a lot of zoos now, you have to say, a lot of zoos are at the forefront of preservation.
Yeah, but they say all this. They say all that.
No, they don't. But they're not sitting in little horrible cages, are they?
Yeah, but I remember the first time I went to Chester Zoo, which is one of the world's leading zoos, and I say that without exaggeration.
Yeah.
It is.
Did you see the tweet I sent out from Chester Zoo the other day?
No, what was that?
I sent out a tweet from Chester Zoo. Well, they did a sort of a Christmas tweet with a bear on the top of a tree.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, some people have fairies on the top of their tree.
Oh, that's right.
Zoo,
I saw it, yeah.
We have something slightly different.
I saw it. I didn't realise it was Chester Zoo. I didn't read it, but I saw the picture.
You didn't read it?
Because recently, there's an actor, there's a Geordie actor who starred in Inspector George Gently called Lee somebody.
Is there?
Yes, Lee somebody.
This is got to be part of Porky Vision later, is it?
No. No, this guy, Lee, was the sergeant to the Inspector in George Gently, but then he made a 6-part series or 4-part series, which my mother watched every word of, because it was about the development of Chester Zoo.
Okay.
And how Chester Zoo started with one man's dream of bringing things like giraffes home and keeping them in the back garden and all this kind of stuff.
Was it Lee Ingleby? Is that the name?
Lee Ingleby's the name. Yes, well done. Where'd you get that from?
I was just...
Somebody told you. Yeah. And it was great. But the first time I went to Chester Zoo, when I saw the size of the compound that elephants live in, I was crying. I couldn't believe it. Because I'd probably been to see Dumbo the day before or something. I was about 4 years of age or 5 years of age.
And you were full of tears and compassion for the animals.
I was, because I think animals... And then I think we went to see Born Free, which is about a tiger that...
about a lion, isn't it?
About a lion, that's right.
A tiger.
But about a lion, it's the
same thing.
They look quite
different. No, they're not the same thing at all. Tigers and lions don't live in the same
sort
part
of thing.
the world.
They're big cats, aren't they? Big
cats,
they are.
That's true.
And
tigers are beautiful, though, aren't they?
Tigers are beautiful, yeah. Tiger, burning bright in the jungle of the night.
In the forest of the night.
Yeah, who wrote that?
Rudyard Kipling.
Rudyard Kipling, that's right. Yeah, you got that. Well done.
I've been to his house,
Who? Rudyard Kipling's house? What, in India?
No, in Sussex.
Oh, in Sussex. Oh, right, OK. Where is it?
It's somewhere in Sussex. I mean, I can't tell you
exactly.
Well,
whereabouts in Sussex? Have you been there?
Well, I've been there. But
were you drunk when you went there, then?
I was not drunk,
how did you get there? Do you know where it is?
Well, because I can't remember exactly where it is.
It's a ridiculous
It's about an hour from my house.
It's a ridiculous story.
Why is it a ridiculous story?
Well, because you claim you've been... I mean, if I said to you, I'll
tell you what, it's somewhere near Etchingham, OK? Does that help
somewhere near Etchingham. If I said to you... Oh, I've been to John Constable's house. And you said, where? So I haven't got a clue.
No, but if you told me the county, that would be all right.
Well, it's in Suffolk, and it's near where Alan Brazil lives.
Well, that doesn't help me. I don't know where Alan Brazil lives.
No, but I know how I got there and where it is. You don't seem to know.
I've just told you it's somewhere near Etchingham.
You don't even know where Rudyard Kipling's house is, but you claim you've been there.
It's somewhere near Etchingham.
Where's Etchingham?
Well, Etchingham's not far from Hastings.
Yeah, but hang on, Mike. Do you not even remember getting there? How old were you?
Well, yeah, I went there last year.
Last year you went to Rudyard Kipling's house and you can't remember where it was.
I mean,
how much did you have to drink that day?
Not much.
Was your wife driving the car?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, well,
She's not my wife, though.
Well, the mother of your children, then, as you so forcibly always want to put it.
I think we did go to the pub beforehand.
Well, of course you did, if you can't remember. I mean, how ludicrous is this?
I'm telling you roughly where it is.
How ludicrous is this? It's like saying, Oh,
well, it's about if you give somebody directions to John Constable's house, you go, oh, it's near where Alan Brazil lives. That's not going to help anybody, is it?
Yeah, but I know. I can remember actually getting there. I remember the village
well,
it was in.
I can vaguely remember how to get there.
Yeah, God, honestly, that is pathetic.
Why are you turning this into some criticism of me?
Because you're acting like an oaf. I mean, it's like saying, I took the kids to Blenheim Palace last week. Oh, right, OK, where's Blenheim Palace? Oh, I don't know. I mean, have you lost touch with reality?
No, I told you it was somewhere in Sussex. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, well, it's ridiculous. Sussex is quite a big county. In fact, it's so big, that's to split it into two, East Sussex and West Sussex.
Right. But you generally refer to East Sussex as Sussex, basically.
Yeah, well, do you? Well, that's where the hospital is, the Brighton Hospital. What's it called? East Sussex Hospital, I think, actually. Yeah,
really?
It's in
There's
East
a
Sussex.
coincidence.
Yeah, I think it is. But why are we talking about...
yeah.
So Safari Park. Safari Park, Tiger Road. And...
do they have tigers there?
Where?
At the Safari Park. Where?
No.
You're the one that's talking about Safari Park.
No, they don't have tigers.
Well, why are you talking about tigers?
Well, because I was talking about Chester Zoo, and I thought the tiger compound was tiny.
There?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
The elephant compound was tiny. The chimpanzee compound was tiny.
Presumably
I didn't
it's
like
probably
it.
bigger now, though, because zoos... Well, I think in those days, zoos were probably slightly more cruel than they are now.
Have you been to Regent's Park Zoo?
I have many times, yeah.
Because you were brought up there, weren't you?
I know where that is. Well, I was brought up sort of in Hampstead,
yeah,
further up the road.
But
I used to live in Primrose Hill, and actually, when I lived in Primrose Hill, when my daughter was very young, you could walk to the around the outside of the zoo.
That's right.
And see quite a lot of the animals. So
isn't that called a circle or something?
Well, there's the outer circle and the inner circle.
That's right, yeah. I know about this.
Park. And you could walk and you could see the giraffes, you could see the bears, you could see the goats, you could see the wolves.
But I don't like that.
You could see all kinds of animals without actually going in.
Fancy keeping giraffes in a compound. That is a terrible thing, in my view.
Well, I suppose so. But, I mean, again, it's educational for the kids, isn't it?
Well, it's educational for the kids, but that doesn't mean to say the animals haven't got feelings. If the animals had a choice of living in a tiny little pen... And in a giraffe's case, it is a tiny little pen. I don't care how big you tell me it is. It's a tiny little pen compared to the tundra. No, it's not the tundra.
The tundra?
What's it called?
The Veldt.
The Veldt, that's right. The Veldt, not the tundra. Tundra's in Russia, isn't it?
It is,
Don't have any giraffes in Russia.
Not usually, no.
No.
Not unless they're being transported across the Trans-Siberian Express.
That's right, yeah. Compared to the Svelte, right? I think...
The Veldt.
I'm surprised...
Not the Svelte.
Do you know what?
You said the Svelte.
The Svelte.
The Veldt.
The Veldt.
It's got an S.
I'm surprised more animals literally don't kill themselves. I'm surprised more animals don't commit suicide.
Well, no, they don't.
You see polar bears in cages and compounds so small, they end up literally pacing forwards and backwards.
Do you remember the one in Central Park Zoo that he used to be able to go and see? He died a couple of years ago, didn't he?
Yeah, he went mad,
he was there for years.
But
I mean, the other thing is that if you said...
It's shocking.
But if you said to these animals, would you rather be here or would you rather be at the risk of being killed by poachers?
Yeah.
Because the poaching situation in a lot of countries in Africa is not very good.
It's not good.
And you know, in order to kind of make sure that the animals can survive, sometimes the zoos do play a part.
But you see, I would rather...
I'm sort of in two minds about it, to be honest.
No, what I would rather that, our government seems to be absolutely determined that, 0.7 of 1% of the whole gross domestic product of this country goes abroad to foreign aid. And we all know...
Well, it's not very much money. You're not going to jump on this particular bandwagon, are you?
Yes, I am, because we all know that a lot of that money goes into the wrong hands.
Yeah.
In countries that don't have stable democracies, the money is often sequestered. Misappropriated is absolutely right.
Yes.
I'd rather we use that money to literally wage war against poachers in Africa if we feel it's that important to preserve the species of these animals.
Yeah.
I really would.
It's very, very difficult to do, of course. But we will be talking to a guest coming up a little bit later on in the show.
About the orangutan.
About the orangutan, yeah. And we'll also be talking to a couple of other experts. One on the meaning of love, because I know that's something which has tortured you over the years, and we're going to find out from you what you think the meaning of love is. So we'll find out from you. We're going to do winners and losers. We're going to talk about Everton. We're going to talk about Chelsea as well. This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the Two Mics. You can find us at the Two Mics, at Mike Parrier and at IROMG. Loads more to come next. This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the Two Mics here with you all the way through the night. It's a 5-hour spectacular, of course. And don't forget, we're up at 10 o'clock at night on Christmas Eve, 10 till 1, bringing you into Christmas Day. Yeah. And also on Christmas Day night, we're going to be here at 10 o'clock until 1 o'clock as well. So an awful lot of the Two Mics to cater for you over the Christmas festive period. And we're going to talk about Christmas a little bit later on.
This is
something I want to pick you up on, though, over the course of the weekend. As you did go to the Southampton-Everton game, we'll talk about that in a little while.
Yeah.
I realise it's probably a bit sad and not a nice thing for you to talk about.
Very raw.
A couple of tweets you put out on Saturday.
Yes.
Sorry to my pals on Wearside,
yes.
but I think my mates on Tyneside are going to be the conquerors today by quite a wide margin, 3-0.
Yeah.
Now, aside from the fact you got it completely wrong,
yeah.
Sunderland won.
Well, I was wrong by
where
4
are all
goals.
these pals of yours on Wearside? I'm interested to know whether there's anybody out there on Wearside who is actually a pal of Mike Parry's. You can tweet us at the 2 Mikes, or you can call the show 08717 223344. And as if that wasn't enough, hang on, I'm not finished yet.
Yes.
There's another one from where are you? From the Liverpool game. Don't want to upset my Copite pals, including the real Kathy Lloyd, but I think Arsenal will win at Anfield today, 2-1. Dismal weekend for Merseyside.
Yes.
You got that one wrong as well.
Well, I got it very nearly right, didn't I?
And why have you got Kathy? Why have you
7
included
minutes.
Kathy Lloyd in the tweet?
Well, believe it or not, do you remember who Kathy Lloyd is?
Yes, I do. Page 3 girl.
Kathy Lloyd was a beautiful page 3 girl of the 80s, would it be? I don't know, or 90s, 80s, something like that.
Probably.
But it doesn't matter. She's ageless. She's one of the most beautiful women in this country.
She is.
And it just so happened that, when I was tweeting out and all this the other day, so all of a sudden I saw a Kathy Lloyd is following you. Sometimes when new people start following you...
Kathy Lloyd's following you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder why.
And I thought,
Do you think she's feeling all right?
Sorry?
Do you think she's feeling all right?
I'm sure she's feeling right. What actually happened was there was some message somewhere about something in which she said, I only follow people who are cool.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
All right.
And the next thing I know is she's following...
Oh, there she is.
She's following me. Yeah.
How bizarre.
I absolutely.
I don't think she's following me, is she?
No, I doubt it very much indeed. She said she only follows people who are cool. Okay, right?
I'm not sure she means cool in that sense.
Now, she is a well-known Liverpool fan. She's a Merseyside girl.
She is.
Unfortunately, her mum must have dropped her on her head when she was little because she ended up as growing up as a Copite instead of a Blue, an Evertonian. And so I thought, generous of spirit and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I got the Liverpool result absolutely right.
No, you didn't.
I did.
You said Arsenal were going to win.
Yes, well, they did win
almost.
They didn't win.
What do you mean they did win almost?
Yeah, but I mean, 7 minutes of added on time, Mike. I mean, that's a pretty late equaliser, isn't it?
So what? It was still a draw.
By the way,
the result is all that gets written down in the results column. It doesn't say, there was 7 minutes of added time.
All the hero worship of Skirtle this morning, the man who saved Liverpool, if it hadn't been for Skirtle's complete ineptitude as a defender for Arsenal's first goal, he wouldn't have had to make up for it by scoring a late winner, would he? Well, a late equaliser,
well, that's football, isn't it? I mean, you can't really give a guy... I mean, sometimes that's the way the game goes. You make a terrible mistake, but then you make up for it later.
I have to say, he was very brave to keep going, because the head wound later on had to be stapled together.
Did you see he tweeted out a picture of it?
Yeah, he had to be stapled together.
Very sort of big gash,
I mean, that's something when you've got to have your head stapled back together.
Yeah.
That's quite an injury.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is
sort of thing I'd have done, run through brick walls, walk through fire, all this kind of stuff.
They've actually got many different ways now of fixing head wounds. One of my sons actually got his head sort of stuck back together when he got a gash in his head when he was quite young, because rather than giving him stitches, it's actually much better than giving him stitches. You basically just glue it back together.
Yeah, well, it's good if it helps people to recover. But
so who are all these friends of yours then?
Well,
Copite friends,
okay,
and Wearside friends.
All right. Okay,
Explain it to me, please.
How come that 2 seasons ago when I went to see Everton play at Sunderland, I was invited into the boardroom?
I don't know.
And then ended up in the director's box.
Did you?
Sitting next to...
Who?
Mr.
Miliband.
Mr. David Miliband, yes, thank you, who was the director of the club at the time.
I'm sure he was delighted to see you.
He was delighted to see me.
Had you been imbibing that day or not?
Might have had a couple of drinks earlier on, but no.
Did you give him any ideas about how to run the country when he was foreign secretary?
Stop trying to make out that I was intoxicated.
I'm not suggesting that.
That's a slur on my character.
I'm not suggesting that.
I had a long chat with Mr. Miliband.
But I've been to football matches with you, so I know how it goes.
Oh, really? You thinking how it goes? Anyway, he wasn't the foreign secretary in those days. He was the shadow. He was the shadow.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah, and whatever. And then, of course, he made a bid to lead the Labour Party, lost it, and
he
now works in New York.
Stitched up by his brother.
Stitched up by his brother, yeah. And now works in...
Did you have a conversation with him?
Of course I had a conversation with him. I was sitting next to him almost.
What did you talk to him about?
Oh, world affairs.
Yeah.
The European monetary snake, which I have a great interest in.
The European monetary snake?
Yes.
What's that?
What's the European monetary snake, isn't it?
I don't know.
It's the way...
Is that one of those species you're trying to protect? The European monetary snake.
Are you that dumb?
What is it? I don't know. Tell me what it is.
It's the interlinking of currencies around Europe, which eventually ended up with the emergence of the euro.
Yes.
But standing outside of the euro, of course, the pound.
Right.
The guilder. No, not the guilder. That's in Holland.
The
Norwegian currency stands outside of it.
Yeah.
Okay. and you compare it favourably or unfavourably with the ruble.
Yeah, but where does the snake bit come from?
Well, the snake is an expression, economic expression.
No, it isn't.
For the shuffle of economies.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's called the EMS, isn't it?
No,
the European Monetary System.
No.
It's not called the European Monetary Snake.
It is. No, to economists, it's known as the...
I don't think so.
To economists, it's known as the European Monetary Snake.
I've never heard of the word snake.
Well, you haven't heard of a lot of
things,
things, Mike, that go on in the world, to be brutally frank.
Do you want me to look it up and see if I can find it?
Yeah, go on.
Find any reference to
the European Monetary Snake is a well-known expression.
Is there a European Monetary Ladder as well?
Of the oscillation of currencies around Europe and currencies which impinge upon the European currency. That's what it is. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. What about the snakes and ladders then?
Oh, there's no snakes in ladders, Mike. I mean, honestly, sometimes, you see, what you try to do all the time is you try to hide your brutal ignorance by trying to mock my intelligence and my knowledge.
Says here, the snake in the tunnel was the first attempt at European monetary cooperation in the 1970s.
Thank you. There you go.
It's a snake in a tunnel.
No.
It's not the European monetary snake.
Of course it's European monetary snake.
Is that in a channel tunnel then?
No. That's nothing to do with it.
Well, it says it's a snake in a tunnel.
No, it's not a snake in a tunnel.
It's nothing to do with a monetary snake.
That is a financial expression about the snake in the tunnel. It's a monetary expression.
What does it mean?
Of course it is. It means what I've just told you.
It doesn't mean anything like that.
It means what I've just told you, the shuffling of currencies.
Why is that like a snake in a tunnel?
Because you don't understand. You'd have to.
Well, no, I want you to explain it to me.
You'd have to read economics for 3 or 4 years to be able to get there,
unlike
Mike.
you, I studied economics at university and I've never heard of it.
Oh, you've never heard of the European Monetary Snake?
No.
Well, do you know, that's like a man saying, I studied history at university, but I've never heard of King Henry VIII. You must have been some dumb student at some dumb university.
Well, what I wasn't was somebody studying, planning at the Polytechnic of Nottingham, which I didn't finish the course on. I was actually doing an economics degree at a proper
university. Are you talking about the University of Trent?
I'm talking about Poly at Nottingham.
It doesn't exist. It's the University of Trent.
No, they changed the name of it,
And it was called Urban Estate Management, and the whole idea was to...
Were there snakes involved?
No. That was in... Well, actually, it wasn't economics discipline in that. There were 5 disciplines.
5?
There was economics, there was law, there was regulation and town planning.
Oh,
there was...
sounds fascinating.
There was taught you how to build a house, actually.
Did it?
Yeah, taught you how to build a house.
I'd love to see you building a house.
Yeah, no, seriously. The composition.
With your bare hands.
How to make a brick, right? The composition of bricks.
Right.
What are you laughing at?
No, I'm just trying to imagine you sitting there taking all this in.
Yeah,
Did you not at any point keep jumping up and say, no, that's not the way you should teach this?
No.
I know how to teach this subject.
No. The texture of wood and the sort of wood you need, and how they make roll steel joints.
Really?
To hold bricks over...
Most people were down a common room just rolling ordinary joints, presumably.
No. Over a doorway and this sort of thing. I mean, I wish you'd have a bit more respect for Academica, because,
Academica, I'm a great fan of theirs.
Yeah, it's a world that, you clearly had trouble absorbing and getting into.
I wasn't particularly academic. I never particularly was interested in getting letters after my name or anything like that.
No, but you copped out of your university course.
I did, because I wanted to be a journalist.
What are you talking about then?
Because I wanted to be a journalist. Well, I don't claim to be...
that one, didn't you?
I don't claim to be a great...
Who did you work for? The cobbler?
Eh?
You worked for the cobbler,
no,
didn't you?
No, I did not, no.
Yes, you did.
No, I worked for the same series of newspapers that you worked for, up to a point, and I worked for a few others as well.
Yeah, but you started off with the cobbler, is that true?
No, it's not true.
I know you applied for a job on the cobbler.
No, I applied for a job at the Shoe and Leather News.
The Shoe and Leather News! One of the world's biggest publications.
It was a trade publication.
Shoe and Leather News!
I applied for a whole bunch of ridiculous
dumbbells
jobs.
Work for trade publications.
I thought that might be the way in. I didn't know at that point. I came out of university and I applied for about 3 jobs a week.
What a laugh.
What I didn't do was go and join...
It's no wonder you struggle these days, starting off with those sort of antecedents, believe me.
Well, I don't struggle these days, actually, thank you very much. But what I didn't do was decide to join a local newspaper so that I could take advantage of all of the things that I could then do in the local town. For example, jumping the queue at the local disco so I could show off to my girlfriend. Yeah. Also, getting free entry to various other attractions in the area. Yes. And also, no doubt, basically trying to get your hands on the early advertising pages of the classifieds. So you could get your hands on the sofas before anybody else did.
No. The point is, when you work as a reporter in a local community, in a local town like Chester, you are serving the community. And if the community want to give you something back...
So how are you serving the community by jumping in front of them all?
No. Remember, if I go and cover... some great event in the city of Chester, maybe the Rag Day Parade or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
That is helping everybody.
Is it?
And even when you trail around a load of schools with a photographer taking pictures of all the nativity plays, those pictures appear in the paper. Parents gush and coo and swell with pride at seeing the picture of their children in the paper. That is the community service which a local newspaper gives to a town. I'm very proud to have worked for the Chester Chronicle. I'm very proud of the industry of weekly newspapers, and it's something we must try and perpetuate in this country because they provide a brilliant service. They are the glue to any local community, in my view.
Is that your pulpit moment for the night so far? Time. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course, and there'll be loads of podcasts coming up this week because we're doing a Christmas Eve show, we're doing a Christmas Day show as well. Loads and loads of the Two Mics. So just follow at the Two Mics, and we'll be sending you the link. Just pick you up on something you said just shortly before the news there about your trip to Wales.
Yes.
You were pointing out that you got caught in a snowdrift in
Blaenau-Ffestiniog,
which was near Pencoeth, I think you said,
yes,
right?
That's right. Pencoeth.
Well, it's 156 miles precisely between the two
ridiculous
places. Pencoeth is down on the south coast near Swansea, which is where Derek's from. Big fan of the show. And Blaenau-Ffestiniog is somewhere into the sort of hinterlands of the middle of the country.
No, well, yeah, but it is.
156 miles away.
No, Blaenau-Ffestiniog is in mid Wales. I know that. It's near Aberystwyth.
So it can't be, You
go down this road to Aberystwyth, and on the way you take a diversion, and you're in Blaenau-Ffestiniog.
3 hours, 32 minutes it takes, apparently.
What?
3 hours and 32 minutes it takes to get from one of those places to the other.
Hang on, if you were on a bike, if you're on a bike,
no, if you're in a car.
Yeah,
you're trying to drive through the centre of Wales.
Yeah, of course I have, I've been to Aberystwyth,
I went to Aberystwyth. Well, I knew I went to university in Aberystwyth.
Yeah, well,
but they only had one single track railway that went from Shrewsbury all the way out to Aberystwyth.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't bring you back until the train had got there from Shrewsbury.
Well, getting to Aberystwyth by road is like going down a sort of one-way road as well for about 80 miles from the next main road. And suddenly end up in Aberystwyth. But it's great when you get there. It's great when you get there.
I wasn't very impressed with Aberystwyth, I have to say.
No, really?
I think tide was out, which didn't help.
That's not very nice to say about the people of Aberystwyth.
Well, I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about the place itself. The tide was out.
Yeah, but people make a place. People make a place.
Well, I was followed around the town by this guy, which I found a bit odd.
What do you mean you follow her in town?
Well, I came out of the train station. I was going to go up to the university. And and because of the time it took to get there and the train I had to get back on, I was only going to be there for about an hour and a half because literally the last train back that connected to London was at about 2:30.
Last train to Clarksville. Now meet you at the station. One of those sort of situations.
One of those sort of situations, And I got out and I was waiting for a lift up to the university, which was slightly outside the town.
Yeah.
And the tide was out, and I just remember this horrible kind of slate rock that was all down by the seafront, and it was all exposed by the tide being out.
Yeah.
And I was sort of just walking around the town, and I got the idea that this guy was kind of following me around.
Well, I mean, did you ever find out what was behind
Well, I
this?
eventually went to a fish and chip shop to get something to eat.
Yes.
And I turned around and he was stopped there, and I said, "Why are you following me around?" He said, I'm not following you around. I said, "Well, you seem to be following me around. I'd like you to stop, please." And he just wandered off. It was very odd.
And that was it?
It was very strange.
A bit
so
odd.
my time in Aberystwyth,
anyway,
that helped me decide not to go there, to be honest.
Okay, but everywhere's close to everywhere in Wales. It's a very close-knit community.
Everything is. That's one of the biggest problems in Wales. In fact, when I was editor of the Welsh Daily Mirror, we used to produce...
Well, that sounds like a big job.
It was a big job, actually.
Was the circulation of that 152?
No, it was about 152,000, actually.
Oh, rubbish. Come on,
people were desperate for a proper Welsh edition of their paper.
Did you produce a Welsh language edition?
We did not produce a Welsh language edition, no.
So but we did
really but I'll tell you the difference between the South Wales and the North Wales edition was the North Wales edition was much more produced out of Manchester because you
Liverpool usually.
Yeah, no, you could not.
Yeah.
Well, the Mirror's printing plant was in Manchester.
Yeah.
So you couldn't print a copy of in the south of Wales and get it up to the north of Wales in time.
No, you couldn't. No.
So that's how bad the communications are.
You've got to get over all those mountains.
Yeah, well,
the
that's
Cumbrians,
because there's no proper
Cambrians.
Cumbran. You're thinking of?
Yeah, Cumbran or something like that. And also, you've got to get through Snowdonia.
That's right.
Horseshoe Pass.
There is no way really.
Lake Bala.
That's what I'm saying. You have to. It was quicker to ship them in from Manchester.
Yeah, of course it was. Yeah. Well, the great paper there during my heyday, so to speak, was the Liverpool Daily Post Welsh edition.
Yes, of course.
That was the biggest selling one around there.
It was.
And I think they actually sold more than the Liverpool Post Liverpool edition.
They did,
Yeah, because it was...
that was the funny thing, because when we started producing the Welsh edition of the Mirror, it was before the merger with Trinity, and Trinity was the company that owned the Liverpool Post and also owned every single paper in Wales, apart from one.
Exactly.
So they weren't very keen on the idea that we were actually then competing with them by having a national newspaper title which was additional. You're not listening to me at all.
I am.
No, you have. I can always tell I can almost tell
I'm
when
listening.
you start to sort of drift off because you're thinking about the next thing you're going to say.
No, not at all.
Because it's going to have something to do with you, is it?
Not at all.
Is it? Well, tell me what you're going to say then.
Well, what I was going to say was, when I started my
another charming anecdote about you.
Well, when I started my newspaper career in weekly newspapers...
In the Chester Chronicle?
Yeah, you go up to...
another great story about your career. Tell us some more about your sparkling career in papers by Mike Porky Parry.
No, our listeners will be very interested.
Why don't you tell us about some of the low points? Because they're far funnier.
I haven't had many low points.
Yeah, I haven't had many, but the ones that you've had have been great.
Well, people know my low points. I mean, they've involved pretty public forays into failure. But anyway, there you go. But what happens is, for the first 6 months, you see, you go to the training centre in Newcastle.
Yeah, you do your indentures, don't you?
It was Thompson Regional Newspaper in those days.
See, I never did that. Yeah, I thought it was a waste of time.
No, it was called the Editorial Training Centre. It was brilliant. Within 6 months, you're writing stories for the evening newspaper.
They used to have the Westminster Press one, used to be in Hastings.
And they had one in Cardiff. Yeah. The Thompsons again, and the Mirror one was down in Cornwall.
That's right, yeah.
In Plymouth or Devon.
That's where they all went, all the people at the Mirror. They all kind of met each other there.
Alistair Campbell went there.
Yeah, David Montgomery, who later ended up owning the thing.
Fiona Miller, who was Alistair Campbell's partner became assistant to Sherry Blair at Downing Street.
Right. Oh, there's a whole host of people who have gone on to great things who all went training together.
They did. But anyway, look, so you go up to Newcastle, and I love the North East and all that, and of course I love where I came from, Chester. When I got back, all of a sudden, there were 5 of us went up there when I came back. They said, right, now we're going to allocate you to our different, local papers.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a Congleton Chronicle, Congleton in Cheshire. Right. There was a Winsford Chronicle. There was...
is this all part of the Chester Chronicle group?
Yeah, all part of the Chester Chronicle group, absolutely right. There was a Whitchurch something or other. It wasn't called the Chronicle, it was a Whitchurch Herald, I think. Whitchurch Herald, that's right. But the one I most feared...
Whitchurch Warbler, they could have called it.
Yeah. The one I most feared was the Welsh Chronicle, based in Mould.
Right.
Mould is just inside North Wales.
Yes,
Big Crown Court there and everything, you know what I mean? And you had
Would you have had to learn Welsh if you'd gone there?
Well, I think you might have done because this is the point of the story. That you spend a week in each district office, Winsford and Whitchurch, and the one I thought, I would have to leave journalism if they post me here was the one in Mould, because the names of all the roads in Mould are all in Welsh.
Are they?
They're all in Welsh. And it's impossible to spell them. It's impossible to pronounce them. Yeah. A lot of the people had Welsh names, and you couldn't pronounce them. Well,
you just had to learn.
A lot of people were speaking. Well, the funny thing is, one of the guys that I went on the training course with, his name was Howard. Right. I think it was Lockley. I think that was wasn't that Robin Hood's name?
Howard Lockley.
No, wasn't he the Earl of Lockley or something?
Was it Richard Lockley or something like
that? No. Robin Hood was the Earl of Lockley, wasn't he?
I don't know, maybe.
I think he might have been. Anyway, this guy was not...
Loxley, I'm told.
Oh, Loxley, that's right. Yeah, okay, different name. This guy wasn't related to Robin Hood. Anyway.
That's a relief.
No, exactly, yeah. But his name was Howard, right? And... when we were in Newcastle, I suddenly discovered he was a student of the Welsh language.
Was he?
And Welsh culture. Right. He loved everything about it,
And was he actually Welsh, or was he just somebody who liked it?
He wasn't Welsh himself, but he got into the Welsh culture. So he could, recite Druid-type, mantras and all that.
You're going to get yourself into terrible trouble if you're going to equate Welsh with Druidism.
No, I'm not. No.
He's not saying everybody Welsh is a Druid.
He used to go and stand on hills in Wales, and do a bit of chanting and all this kind of stuff. That's what he was into. Right. So, of course, I thought, I won't get sent to the Welsh office because Howard will go to the Welsh office.
If you take him down the pub, you could have shown him some of your chanting as well.
Maybe, yeah. I thought, Howard will go on to the Welsh office because he's Welsh. Right. Well, as good as, Right. I mean, he took Welsh lessons and everything. Anyway, I suddenly hear that Howard's been sent off to the Congleton office or something in Whitchurch. So the Welsh office was still open and free. I thought, I can't do it. Anyway, much to my relief, I was posted in Chester. Because
Chester would have been a busier office, presumably, as well.
Oh, well, they're all busy. The weekly papers, need a lot of copy, as you know, a lot of stories every week, and they're very active and all that kind of stuff. You do Mould Crown Court and all that kind of stuff. And much to my relief, some other guy got the Welsh office. He got Mould, but believe it or not, he had the same problem as me. And 6 months later, he left journalism.
Oh, really?
Said he couldn't handle it because of the language barrier. And
so you must have dodged the bullet second time because they might have then sent you in to replace him. Presumably.
Well, I think they just didn't replace him. I think they then looked for somebody locally because that was the only way it was seemingly work. But the interesting thing is that you'd have thought that in places like Cardiff and Swansea and all that, strong Welsh-speaking contingent and all that. But in fact, I think it's stronger in the north.
Well, the further west you go in the south, it gets more Welsh.
Yeah,
like
sure.
by the time you've got to, Llanelli, that's very Welsh-speaking. But
Llanelli,
also because of the
Mm.
Welsh Language Act now. I mean, they teach Welsh in schools. I mean, every kid in Wales now learns Welsh, regardless.
I don't know
of
why
whether...
they do that.
Well, they do it because they want to preserve the language, and so
I can understand that. But is it very practical for a child to spend hours a week learning a language that is not going to be of any use to them in their adult life?
But that's not true, because since devolution, it's actually very useful. Because if you learn to speak Welsh, you can certainly get a job working for the Welsh Parliament. You can get a job working.
Yeah, but
what
is the purpose of that? What's the purpose of that? Does that make the operation of the Welsh Parliament more efficient?
I don't think it does personally, no.
Right.
But what I'm saying is
because you've got to translate everything.
But it's not a dead language now, because they now use both languages in government. And so,
but I mean, on that basis, then people in Cornwall should be allowed to start practising Cornish.
Well, they haven't got their own parliament.
No, but they should say, well, hang on, we'll use it in the Cornwall County Council offices or something like that. They could easily say
do that, but it's not quite the same as an entire country.
But it's inefficient to use more than one language in the same country.
Well, they do that.
Look what they do in
Belgium.
Europe.
They do it in Belgium. They do it in Switzerland. Why is it not a problem?
Yeah, but they've grown up with different languages. I mean, there's four.
So have the Welsh.
There's 4 languages in.
The time, by the way. We've seen the time.
Where is it? 4 languages. There's 4 languages in Holland, isn't there?
Well, in Switzerland, you've got German.
There's 4 in Switzerland.
You've got German. You've got
4 in
French.
Austria.
You've got Italian.
Yeah, that's
true. How's there 4 in Austria?
Well, there are.
Which 4?
Well, because of the situation prior to the Second World War with Sudetenland and all that, there are 4.
Rubbish. Absolute cobblers. He is Mike Porky Parry. I am Mike Graham. We are the 2 Mikes. Coming up, we're going to try and define the real meaning of love.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. What is
This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the 2 Mikes. A couple of tweets and texts to read out to you. Here's one from, where are we? Dave, who says he's an Everton fan and he's an ex-Aberystwyth student. He says Blaenau Festiniog is in North Wales, whereas Aberystwyth is in West Wales. There was a fair distance between the two. 156 miles, I have to say. And he says, could you please say Happy Christmas to the listeners in Welsh, which looks like Nadolig Llawen.
Nadolig Llawen.
Does that sound about right?
You're going to get the old clack.
L-L-A-W-E-N. Llawen, I think that would be.
Yeah, it's like Llandudno,
right.
See?
Derek has added another one from Pincoed. He says, Mike and Porky, I was taught Welsh in school and I left school way back in 1983, so I guess they've been teaching it for a very long time. Now, we're going to talk about something which is one of the age-old questions of eternity, funnily enough, because you remember last week they brought out the most Googled things over the course of the year.
Yes.
They had a whole host of celebrities,
Yes.
they had a whole list of subjects and news stories
Yes,
and all
I
that.
do.
One of the questions that is most often asked and put into Google, and a lot of people put in things like, where is the nearest restaurant? Blah, blah. The third most Googled thing in the world is what is love?
Really?
Right? Because people...
It's a strange thing to want
Well,
to know.
you imagine, I suppose, a lot of, sort of young teenagers are putting it in to see what comes back out. And to be honest, I don't actually know what the answer is because I don't know what answer Google would give you. But in order to help us to find out precisely what the meaning of true love is, and I'm going to ask you what you think the meaning of it is as well.
Okay.
Because I'm going to ask you that eternal question.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in love?
Right, okay.
Have you?
Who, me?
Yes.
Yes,
So
I have,
you have been in love?
I have, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk to Dr. Pepper Schwartz, who is a professor of sociology at Washington in Seattle, or Seattle in Washington, I should say. Dr. Pepper, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That's a great name, that Dr. Pepper, isn't it?
It is,
People must point. I suppose I'm not the first person to point it out.
No, we didn't think that through, did we?
No, it's a very attractive name indeed, particularly for an expert on such such an interesting and fascinating subject. The thing is, Doctor, my colleague, Mr. Graham, because we're both called Mike here, has just asked me if I've ever been in love, and I've answered yes. But the caveat to that story is that was the first love of my life, a girl I went out with for 5 years, till the age of 21. That didn't work out because I went off and pursued a career in the media, and I have been unable to fall in love with anybody since, and therefore have remained single throughout my life.
Sad story.
Well, it could change.
Well, it could change, you're absolutely right. But it's not a sad story for me, because I've never felt the
Did you break
attraction.
up with this woman, or did she dump you?
Yes, no, I decided to move on, and I had things to do.
So you
in
were
life.
in love with her, and yet you still decided to end it?
Sort of. I mean,
Blimey.
it was a question of us not being able to decide where we could go next to both our satisfaction. So we had to pass. Now, is that a fairly typical story, Doctor?
Well, it sounds like somebody wanted to get married and somebody didn't, but it's not usually typical for all of one's life. Usually both men and women decide they want a commitment. Sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes it doesn't. But most people really do want a really secure commitment to someone they love.
But isn't it interesting when you say the word commitment? I mean, certainly there'll be a lot of men listening to this show recoiling at horror just at the thought of the word commitment, because commitment obviously comes quite difficult to a lot of men. But I mean, commitment and love are not necessarily the same thing, are they?
Well, you know, it depends if you're a boy or a girl, how you feel about that. They're not necessarily the same thing, except when you really love somebody, you want to protect them, and you don't want them to be with anyone else. You want to be with them. You don't want them to date someone else. The thought of it really pains you. You want to know that they care about you more than anyone else in the world, and vice versa. And most people sort of just say, okay, we're going to have each other's backs and face the world together. But not everyone.
No.
Sometimes love's a transient emotion, but most people, as they get older, don't get a little tired of things that come and go.
That's true. Now, Doctor, I believe that some people think they're in love, but actually they're just feeble-minded, and they need no, seriously, they need somebody else in life as a rock to bond with, because they don't want to go through life on their own. And I think this, you know, without being sexist, I think this more particularly worries women than it does men. You know, women get to a certain age and there's this old expression about being left on the shelf and all that. And sometimes I think women eventually have to compromise, and a lot of women get married not for love, but because it's a good arrangement and maybe for convenience.
I don't think that's anybody's ambition. Gosh, I hope when I grow up I can settle for a convenient marriage. I think sometimes people get very lonely, and they feel like, oh, well, you know, maybe I will compromise. But sometimes they get a little more realistic, and they go, you know, maybe what I've been looking for is not the best thing for me. Maybe I've been in a fantasy world, and I need a real person who has real character, etc. That's not compromising. I think that's growing up. Doesn't mean you don't love them passionately. It means you pick new things to love. I mean, maybe before it was height and weight and career, and maybe later on it's the kind of human being that person is.
Right. Yeah, so love changes, doesn't it, over time? I mean, I'm a parent, and I have to say that having discovered the love that you have for your children, it's it's a much more enduring kind of love, and a much less kind of destructible kind of love, if you like, than you can have, that I've ever had for any woman, anyway.
Well, you know, the lucky people can have that kind of love with another adult. I mean, it's hard to imagine loving someone that passionately once you're a parent. But, in fact, there are people who fall in love. It gets richer and deeper and more connected, and it lasts a lifetime. That's kind of winning the lottery.
Doctor, I've got a theory now, to be honest. As we're all living so much longer, and the average age is going to be about 75 or 80 or 85, shouldn't most of us now accept that actually there should be two great loves of your life, not one? Because after 40 years of the first marriage, it's bound to sort of peter out, or you get fed up with each other. Climbing into bed with the same person every night for 40 years.
Well, especially with you.
Well, that's a bit harsh. And you both suddenly decide we're going to look for something newer, for something fresh, something more exciting, something that's going to reinvigorate my life. Shouldn't we all accept now? Because, I mean, so many people do have multiple marriages, don't they, that it's almost becoming the norm.
Well, it is almost becoming the norm, and you're right. It's hard to have, you know, a lifetime relationship with the same person. If you're lucky, you can do it. I mean, I've known lots and lots of marriages that have no regrets for staying together, that they're not just there because they're scared or the money or whatever. There are people who deepen, but I agree. It's very hard to be the same person and grow in the same way for a lifetime. People change, circumstances change, and the person they would have loved at 25 is not the person they would have loved at 50. No. You know, so be it. I mean, it's one of those things that's true. The long life we live makes it hard to change together.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And what about this? Very bad news for Mr. Parry, if he is on the lookout still for that special someone. It says people at the same level of attractiveness are more likely to end up together. So that's bad news for him.
Why is that bad news for
Well,
me?
because it means that a woman who would be at the same level of attractiveness as you would not be a woman, shall we say, who might be sought after by many men.
That's rubbish. That's nonsense. Utter nonsense. I mean, the thing is, it's not surface attraction, is it, Doctor? It's what's inside a person. It's their personality, it's their intelligence, it's their ability to transmit thoughts of togetherness to their partner.
That's the whole package, you know.
Absolutely.
I mean, people, you know, it's.
You love yourself far too much, though.
Like.
Rubbish.
He loves himself
What?
far too much to have the possibility of sharing his life with anybody else.
Well, you do have to have the capacity to love someone else besides yourself. That is one of the elements that's necessary.
Well, I realise that. Doctor,
Are you married, Dr. Pepper?
Nope, I'm engaged though.
Oh, you're engaged. Oh, okay.
Oh, well, I hope that works out. That's excellent.
Said with the most sincerity he could muster.
No.
I hope that works out.
Not at all. I hope, of course, I do. Now, Doctor, as you're an expert on this, bit of a tricky question, this, but would you ever advocate somebody to stray inside a marriage to try and help the marriage improve?
No, I wouldn't. I would say that sometimes when people have that kind of event and it shocks them and one person's ready to leave, they find out what wasn't going well and they work harder for the relationship and they create a stronger relationship. But it throws it into peril and you don't know which way it's going to land. I mean, obviously, you know, we're not meant to be monogamous in many ways. We're attracted to other people. We're flattered at being with someone seductive. You know, I mean, people have affairs. I mean, that's just the truth of it. But that's not necessarily something that's going to make anything stronger. It puts it into jeopardy, may or may come out better, may or may not end.
Yeah, OK. And one final thing, Doctor, because it's that time of year, there's a statistic in this country, certainly, that it's a perilous time for marriage, Christmas, because coming into the new year, you get all sorts of problems, you know, that have emerged over Christmas, the closeness of the family and all that. And it is a peak time for people to start going to see the divorce lawyers.
You know, I think what happens is there's a lot of emotion around Christmas and New Year's. What is my life supposed to be like? All of these, you know, sappy music's going on, you know, romantic movies in the houses. It just gets everybody's, you know, blood up and hormones up and thinking about what life should be and what it is and what it isn't. And when you're in that kind of strange state, you can be impulsive and you can really act on, you know, adrenaline and dopamine and oxytocin and hormones like that rather than on an everyday basis. So, yeah, it is a little bit of a perilous time.
It really can be. Well,
Yeah.
Dr. Pepper Schwartz, I hope you have a lovely Christmas. And thank you
Indeed,
very
we
much
do.
for joining us. Professor of
Thank you.
Sociology at the Washington in Seattle University. Here's one just to end up with. A vet has apparently said, the love we feel for our pets is incredibly special, but after 2 decades working with animals, I believe that it pales in comparison to the love they have for us. So that actually is his definition of true love.
Most pets only love their owners, their masters, what do you want to call them, because that's the only way they get food.
Yeah.
That's what that
but
is.
they are very devoted, and you've seen examples of that
Yeah.
over time. You know, like
Yeah,
the
I
dog
have.
that will sit on his master's grave, or you know, will
There's,
nurse somebody sick back to health.
In Tynemouth, Mike, I think I told you this before, there's a pub right at the end of Tynemouth High Street. I can't remember what it's called now, but somebody always reminds me. And there's a stuffed dog in a glass case in this pub. And that dog, right, was, you know, in the days when you know, the ship owners would set off on a voyage, maybe 6-day fishing voyage or something like that, you know, and the dog would wait by the quayside. And this guy never came back. His ship went down. He was a sea captain, you know, and
the dog just sat there.
He just sat there and died.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, for years and years and years, people brought food for the dog, but the dog would never. He wouldn't even.
Incredible.
You know, when it was freezing cold, when it's raining, whatever, he just would not move.
Yeah.
And eventually, the dog died of exposure.
Right.
And you know, it's a legendary tale, and that's the way dogs are. That's the way they are.
It's a tremendous story.
Fantastic loyalty.
Very
You get much more loyalty
fascinating,
from a dog than you do from some human beings. I
Well,
have to say that.
I know that's how you feel, and
Yeah.
we'll talk some more about this coming up a little bit later on.
Oh, baby, how you find? All I need is my buddy. I say I'm gonna get high.
The most famous song, of course, that Joe Cocker ever sang was a remake of a Beatles tune, of course, I Get By with a Little Help from My Friends. Amazing that nobody else really has ever covered a Beatles song with such success as he has, and made almost a complete career out of one song, really. I know that people will say, well, he had a couple of other hits as well, but really that was the one song that he was famous for.
Well, didn't he do And It's High Time I Went?
Eh?
And it's high time we went.
That one, no, I don't know that one. Well, he also did the song from Up Where We Belong, the song from Officer and a Gentleman.
Yeah, that's right. But you
there are
a
couple of other songs.
Absolutely right. Didn't he do that at Woodstock Live?
He did do it at Woodstock Live. Yeah, we're going to talk now to a man who I don't know if he was at Woodstock Live, but Nick Harcourt is on the phone to us now. Nick, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Guys, I actually was not at the original Woodstock. I'm not quite as old as you fellas, but I did live in. I knew
you'd have something to say about that.
I did live in Woodstock for a while. The actual town. Yeah, it's good to speak to you guys, but it's that occasion, obviously.
Yeah, obviously sad. I mean, 70 years of age, I suppose you might say, even though nowadays rock stars tend to live quite a long time, he's had a pretty good innings, you might say.
Yeah, I guess so. I think when you think about the fact that he died of lung cancer, though, you got to think that maybe without that he probably would have been around a little bit longer. But perhaps his voice was so raspy because of all the cigarettes over the years.
Yeah, it could well have been. Now, Nick, obviously huge respect for Joe Cocker and what he did in his life, but being a huge Beatles fan, I have a problem with him becoming famous for covering a Beatles song. And I'm about to tell you, as I understand it, the reason he chose that one, with a little help from my friends, which in fact is the second track on Sgt. Pepper's, isn't it? Is because Lennon and McCartney wrote it and then gave it to Ringo, and Ringo was perceived to be the worst singer in the Beatles, so Joe Cocker thought, Ringo Starr's not much good, I can do it better, and I always felt a bit resentful about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, if you think about, look, I'm a big Beatles fan as well, and if you think about covers of Beatles songs, there's a lot of very, very bad covers of Beatles songs, and this is not a bad cover at all. I mean, this is a genius cover of a song.
And when he did it first at Woodstock, I suppose nobody had really thought perhaps of covering a Beatles song in that way, changing it really completely and making it into a sort of a blues ballad more than it was anything else, more than a pop song.
The funny thing about that is I think that back around that time, the only songs that people were covering were Bob Dylan songs. So for somebody to come out and completely reinvent that song the way he did, that's why it became such a big song. And that's why it stands up, all these years later. And I heard you guys on the intro talking about the fact that he didn't really do that much else. I mean, there were a couple, obviously, but that's the song that he was known for. But because of the fact that he did it in such an amazingly intense way with the feeling that he put into it and created, as you said, a blues song out of something that was never intended to be that. That's why it stands the test of time, and that's why we're talking today.
Mm-hmm. Nick, if you look at the Joe Cocker legend from your perspective in the United States, is it bigger or lesser than the perspective we have of him in this country, bearing in mind the Beatles were actually bigger in America than they were here?
Yeah, I think that song was probably bigger here. But, it's a bigger place, isn't it? So
sure.
if anything really does blow up here, it becomes pretty huge just because of the size of the place. But, yeah, I think that most people would know that song here from classic rock radio. And to be honest with you, you fellas and myself are a little bit older. If you're a little bit younger than us, you might not even know it's a Beatles song. I'm sorry to say that, but
no, that's true. When he held concerts in America, Joe Cocker, did he fill stadiums?
I got to be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how recently he was touring. I think he was.
Yeah,
I think the most recent tour
I can't imagine he was filling. Yeah, I can't imagine he was filling stadiums these days, but I bet you he was doing pretty good business. What they call the sheds over here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like auditoriums, maybe 3,000-4,000 people or something like that.
Yeah, maybe a little bit bigger, something like that. I'm not really sure, but he definitely was somebody who was very, very well known over here for sure.
And obviously he was a successful singer and he had bands and he did, as I say, he did have other hits which would have made him a bit of money. But I mean, recording a song like that obviously the royalties would go largely to the Beatles, wouldn't they? I mean, would he be able to make... I mean, if you cover somebody's song like that, and it is by a famous band, I mean, do you make a reasonable amount of money off that one song?
If it's big enough, you do. I mean, obviously, I don't know if you know how this works, but it basically works when you record a song. It's split into two sides. There is the master recording side of it, and then the other side is the publishing. Well, straight away, half of it you don't own because somebody else wrote it. But if you record a master recording of a song, you own that performance, and you get performance royalties every time that song is played. So. That song, his version of that song, has been played a lot, so I'm sure he was making a pretty decent living off that.
Yeah, I bet he was. And talking about bad cover versions of Beatles songs, I mean, I can't actually think of another decent cover of a Beatles song.
Well,
Can you?
I was just about to say this to you, Nick. I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's just been a disc has just come out of a lot of famous people like Billy Joel covering Paul McCartney songs, right? And
I've actually heard a couple of those. I think I've heard The Cure doing "Hello Goodbye."
Oh, right.
Oh, that'd be quite good. I would have thought.
Yeah, and I just don't get it. I don't know why people cover Beatles songs. I don't think there's anybody in the world who can replicate a John Lennon song like John Lennon can. So I don't know why people bother.
Well, I'm inclined, in most instances, to agree with you. I mean, you're on a hiding to nowhere, really, unless you're somebody like Joe Cocker who can completely make the song your own,
Sure, yeah, and bring it out in a different style, so to speak, rather than just re-singing it.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's no point in redoing the song and making it sound the same. I mean, what's the point?
Yeah,
unless you're going to do like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds by William Shatner, which is sort of quite memorable, isn't it?
Or Elton John. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't mind the Elton John version.
No, I don't mind it. Actually, that's not bad. Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
When I've heard Lennon pick up somebody else's song and do it, he does better than the original. He just does, Stand By Me, which John Lennon did, to me is the best best version of that I've ever heard. And yet, of course, the original was the classic, disc, wasn't it? Yeah.
Benny King was the original. But, Lennon also did that. Lennon also did that album right after the Beatles split, the rock and roll album, where he covered all the music that he grew up listening to, like, Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and stuff like that. It's a pretty good one. It's called Rock and Roll.
Yeah, sure.
It is a very good album. Yeah. Listen, Nick, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Have a great Christmas. Thank you very much indeed. Nick Harcourt over there on the West Coast. Have you ever heard William Shatner doing that, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds? You must have heard it.
No, I haven't, honestly.
We'll have to try and find
William
it.
Shatner's about 90 now, isn't he?
No, he's not that old.
He is.
He can't be.
No, he is. I'm telling you.
He cannot be 90.
I'm telling you, he's closer to 90 than he is to 80.
Really?
We're talking about Captain Kirk.
Yeah, Captain Kirk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely, he is.
He did an album of songs where he basically spoke the lyrics.
Really?
And it's just really, really odd. We'll see whether we
Sounds
can find
odd
it
to me,
for you to have a bit of a listen. But interesting that Joe Cocker, as I say, is one of those guys who literally had a career based really on just one song.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And again, it's a song which I thought he nicked. I mean, our expert there, Nick, wasn't it? He laughed when I said, well, I think he chose that one because it was sung by Ringo Starr, who was perceived to have the weakest voice in the Beatles. And by the way, I saw a row breaking out in the music press this week about. Did you know Billy J. Kramer's still going?
I didn't know that.
Do you remember Billy J. Kramer?
Well, I know the name.
Little children.
I don't remember him. I'm not that old.
Yeah, well, he was around in the 60s, like everybody else. And
but I was a child, a small child.
Yeah, well, of course you were. Well, I was more or less so. But Billy J. Kramer did a couple of songs in the 60s because it was called Mersey Beat. Everybody from Liverpool was making records in those days. But John Lennon and Paul McCartney wrote a couple of songs for him. And he's got very upset because he read something lately saying, Billy J. Kramer just did a couple of songs which Lennon and McCartney didn't think were good enough for the Beatles.
Oh,
They threw them away.
Right.
And Billy J. Kramer sort of almost picked up the lyrics off the floor of the studio and said, I'll have this. And Billy J. Kramer's been writing to the music press saying that's not true.
Well, he was actually selected by the Beatles.
He said, John Lennon actually picked me out and said, this song will suit your voice perfectly. And it was, I don't know which one it was now, but he did Little Children and all this.
Right.
Yeah, what's this?
This is William Shatner's version of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Yeah. I don't want to upset you.
Well, hang on. This doesn't sound like William Shatner.
Well, that's not him. That's the backing singers.
Well, when's he going to say something?
Well, when the lyrics come in, here we go.
Picture yourself in a boat on a river with tangerine trees and marmalade skies. Somebody calls you.
It's so awful.
You answer quite slowly. A girl with kaleidoscope eyes. Cellophane flowers of yellow and green.
Sounds like he's on drugs, doesn't he?
Sounds demented, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure he's not on drugs, but
with
he
the
sounds
sun
like he
in her
is.
eyes. And she's gone.
Well, they were when they wrote it, so there's no reason why he shouldn't be when he was
Sorry?
singing it. They were when they wrote it, weren't
Yeah,
they?
they were, yeah.
So what do you think of that, then?
Well, it's rubbish. You know, it's a nonsense to desecrate a classic John Lennon song like
It is.
that. And
It is rubbish, but it's so bad that actually it's become like cult listening for people.
Yeah, I'm
'Cause
sure
he also
it has,
did,
but-
he
but
did Rocket Man, he did Bohemian Rhapsody, all on one album.
Yeah, but you wouldn't lie back on the couch at home, close your eyes and think, I'll relax and I'll listen to a bit of music. Listen to that rubbish, would
No,
you?
it would drive you mad.
Trash.
It would drive you
when you could have the
insane.
original thing. The original thing was written because Julian Lennon came home
Yeah.
and said, "This is my picture, Daddy. Who's that? Oh, that's my friend Lucy in the sky with her diamonds."
Yeah.
Nothing to do with LSD.
Right.
Nothing to do with LSD. Lysergic acid diethylamide, which is the real name of LSD.
My goodness
was,
me, how did you know that?
I just did. I just do.
It just kind of
Yeah,
rattled off your tongue.
yeah. I just have extensive knowledge of these things.
Say it again.
Lysergic acid diethylamide,
Wow.
which is shortened to LSD,
Yeah.
right, was the mind-bending drug which everybody was taking
Yeah.
in the 60s. But that was the one.
Timothy Leary.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but that was the one record they wrote on that track, which had not, in which they weren't on acid and all that kind of stuff. But of course, the BBC banned it because they said it was LSD.
Yeah, yeah.
But the girl who was Lucy, very sadly, a couple of years ago, died.
So who was Lucy then?
She was.
Must have been known to his son.
She was like a teaching assistant at the school. You see what I mean?
Right.
And Julian was about
It'd be
5 or
amazing
something.
to have a song like that written about you, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A classic, all-time classic song
Yeah.
on an all-time classic album. Probably the most famous album of all time. Sgt. Pepper's and Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Well,
Unbelievable.
I wonder if it is. I mean, I know it's one of the biggest selling albums of all time, but if you talk to, kids nowadays, for example, they wouldn't necessarily know
I
it.
totally agree with you. But then again, if you talk to people 20 years after Mozart died, they wouldn't have, or 30 years after Mozart died, they wouldn't have recognised Mozart as the greatest composer.
Well,
but
I'm not
100
sure.
years on, we do.
I'm not sure.
200 years on.
Now,
even.
coming up in the next hour,
Yeah.
let me tell you what we've got coming up.
Right,
because,
okay.
we've got the Porky quiz a little bit later than
Righto.
normal. That's going to be in the 4 hour. It's a quiz about Christmas, by the way, this time around. So
About
we'll see how
Christmas,
you
yeah,
get on.
okay, yeah, I can handle that.
I don't want you
I know the
moaning
history of Christmas
I don't
quite
want you
well.
moaning and groaning that there's too many questions about films or music or anything like that. It's all about the all-encompassing thing that
Well, it
goes
probably
on
will
at
be.
Christmas. We're going
By
to
the
have
way, you
winners.
cheat.
We're going to have winners and losers, and also we're going to have a word with Steve Wise, who's the president of the Non-Human Rights Project. Now, this is a guy who's going to tell you about Sandra, the orangutan.
That's
down
great.
In
That's
Argentina.
great. I'm glad we're getting
not
down to
sure
it and doing it.
I'm not sure if he's the same guy we spoke to about Tommy the Chimp. I think he might be. Do you remember a few weeks
If
ago?
it
we
is,
spoke
it's
to the
good, because
same guy?
then that means he's on both cases,
Yes.
which is brilliant.
No, absolutely right. Now, also coming up in the next hour,
yeah.
I'm going to be revealing that over the last few days we've had a communication from one of your fans.
Oh, yes.
Who works for a PR company.
Oh, that's
good. And he sent you a bottle of something called Cherry Active Concentrate.
Cherry Active Concentrate.
Yeah.
What is it?
Now, Cherry Active apparently improves the duration and quality of sleep,
Yes.
according to a new study, but it also would be, as far as he's concerned, very good for reducing the pain from your gout in your foot. I didn't notice you limping when you came in tonight, so I'm assuming that things
It's
are
getting
going
better.
well.
It's getting better.
Is it?
It's getting better.
Have you been taking something to make it better, or is it just a course of rest you've been giving it?
I think it's a bit of mental power on my behalf.
Really?
I wanted it to get better. I went to Southampton on Saturdays,
Right.
I had to do a bit of walking there,
Yes.
from station to the...
Well, for going from Portsmouth to Southampton, that's not a terribly long trip, is it?
No, but I have to, first of all, get over to Portsmouth from Gosport, bit of walking there,
Okay.
foot ferry,
Yeah.
walk around the
I've
ferry
been
to
on
keep
that ferry,
yourself fit. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Then you have to get on the old train and then get up to Southampton and then walk from Southampton station. Quite active.
So your foot's feeling better anyway?
Feeling better.
Well, we
Feeling better.
might see if we can try some of this stuff out. Cherry Active Concentrate, it's called.
Okay.
I'll tell you about it coming up
Okay.
next. Got a text here from somebody from Winford, I think it is. I think he's in South Wales, who says William Shatner is not closer to 90 than he is to 80, Mr. Parry. He is 83.
Right.
Wrong again, Mr.
Okay,
Parry.
well, almost.
Well, he's closer to 80 than 90.
Well,
you said he was closer to 90 than 80.
Can we believe he's 83? Because a lot of these Hollywood guys, they sometimes forget when they were born. If you see what I mean.
Well, they don't forget when they were born. I think they sometimes shave off the ages a little bit. Well, you're not a bit guilty of doing that yourself. I mean, when anybody asks you what your age is, you always say you're in your sort of early middle age, don't you?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Which is not generally how most people would describe 60.
No, I am, honestly. Don't worry.
All right, now, let's talk about this Cherry Active stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because this is a note from somebody calling himself Alea. He's at Image Box PR.
Yeah.
He says that he sent this to us because Cherry Active is 100% cherry concentrate. Says they're a client of ours. It is proven to treat gout by reducing the uric acid and inflammation. And we hear your gout discussion and would love to give this sample to Mike Parry to try. And we've included the proof and study inside for further information. And it says, let us know how he gets on. So I can now present you with the information.
Thank you.
And this little bottle, which is sealed, as you can see, so you don't have to worry about it.
Let me have a look.
And it's called Cherry Active Concentrated Montmorency Cherry Juice.
Okay, let me have a look at this.
7 servings.
Right, okay. Now, you say it's sealed.
Well, it is sealed. I know you're very suspicious of anything that gets sent to you.
Cherry Active signally improves duration quality of sleep. What's that got to do with gout?
Well, because it helps you sleep as well. So, I mean, it's not a bad thing if you're working these
It says
strange
high
hours,
levels of phytochemical, including melatonin, a molecule critical in regulating the sleep-wake cycle.
Melatonin's good for your sort of your general feel-good as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel good anyway. I feel good, mate. Yeah, I feel good. Don't worry about that. I don't need this. I don't need, a little bottle of Cherry Aid to make me feel good. Now, the only thing that worries me a little bit here, I see. They've sent it to our producer. Okay, here we go. Cherry Active and all that. Now,
what worries you about it?
Well, I do not wish to cast aspersions on the person who sent it to me. It's probably a kind gesture. But what I have to say is, and I'm suggesting this has happened on this occasion, I'm always worried that if I indulge in things which are sent through the post, how do I know that somebody hasn't, James Bond style, used a syringe to inject...
Why would you be so paranoid?
Hang on. How do I know that somebody hasn't used a syringe to inject some nefarious substance into the
why don't you tip
the fluid?
Tip the fluid upside down, and if it doesn't come out of any hole that was been made by a syringe, then you'll find out that everything's fine.
No, there's a new method that spies use to do this.
Really?
If they use a hot syringe, you can get it through the plastic cap.
Oh, yeah.
And then withdraw it, and because you've heated the plastic, it draws together again.
Does it?
And you don't even see the hole. You can't even see it.
I still think that would make a piercing. That
no,
would
I don't think so.
You can't. Once you've made a hole in plastic, it doesn't grow back.
No,
it's not skin, is it?
Look, if I show you the bottom of the bottle, it's quite rough. You see what I mean? There's an indentation, a rough surface. Now, how would you tell if a syringe had gone in there or not?
Well,
you
because
wouldn't.
If a syringe had gone in there and made a hole, and the stuff would all come out.
No, it wouldn't.
Of course it would.
No, it wouldn't. I've told you.
Plastic, once you pierce plastic, the hole remains.
No.
Yes, it does.
No, if you use a heated syringe...
I don't believe that.
I'm telling you, man, I know these things.
Well, how do you know?
Well, because I'm very aware of what goes on in life, and I learn these things to protect myself from insidious attacks.
Insidious.
So what I'm saying is, if a hot syringe went in there, with it being just to explain to our millions of listeners, this is an indented,
bottle.
It's an indent. It's an indented indent, so to speak, on the bottom of the bottle, but it's got a sort of rough pattern on it, so you can't tell whether there's been a syringe put in there or not.
But if somebody made a hole in it, it would not.
No, it wouldn't.
Grow back.
No, it does. It can. It pulls back together again. Believe me. I know these things. I know the science of plastics and fabricants from my days as a student of urban estate management.
If you're too chicken to try it, then I guess you're never going to have it, are you? You'll never know the benefits of it.
It might be irresponsible to try it. I mean, look, I'm very grateful to the guys. It's very kind of you and all that kind of stuff, but...
Do you sit around often thinking that people are plotting to do away with you then?
No, I don't. I don't. But why do you think people like... because we haven't talked about him yet. Why do you think people like Fidel Castro and his brother Raul Castro now runs Cuba, right?
Yes.
Who, newly friendly with the United States of America again.
After some time.
Yeah. Why do you think they have food tasters? They have food tasters
because they're leading a country which was technically not at war with the United States, but they were pretty sure that the CIA were trying to assassinate him.
Oh, for the last 30 years, the CIA have had plans
with
to...
With the greatest respect, there's no point comparing yourself to Fidel Castro.
No, I'm not. I'm not comparing myself to Fidel Castro. I do not think that anybody from a foreign spy agency is going to put a bomb in the exhaust pipe of my car.
No, it seems unlikely.
Or offer me a cigar that's going to blow up in my
explode.
face.
Yeah, exactly.
Or going to ask me to go swimming on a beach where one of the rocks on the beach is described as is disguised as a bomb to blow me up.
Yeah, that's not going to happen to you.
You know, I don't think that they'll ask me to go on a fairground ride where they've deliberately sawed through the joints of the big wheel cabin that I'm in, so it falls off and kills me.
Did you ever go to Cuba, by the way, on your travels?
No, I didn't actually. No, mate of mine did. A mate of mine, John Jinks. Remember, he used to be the news editor of the Daily Express.
Yeah.
He went off there because he heard it was very cheap drink, very hot weather.
Well, lots of people go there on holiday from here.
Yeah,
but you still can't. I mean,
and very attractive women.
Yeah, unless they've changed things, which I presume they are about to now that the relations have been restored. You couldn't fly there directly from the United States. You used to have to go in via Jamaica or via Mexico or via another island. Yeah. There was a great story actually about Mickey Brennan, the photographer.
Oh, yeah, of course
he had to go. Arthur Scargill,
unbelievable.
at the time when he was one of the great enemies of the Daily Mail and various other right-wing newspapers, went to celebrate one of Castro's birthdays.
Yeah.
And it was one of those big significant events where all these people from around the world were invited. And there was a massive sort of, picture opportunity where they all sat on the stage together with about 400 of them all sitting there,
I remember,
praising Fidel Castro, the great man, and, communists
leader.
from all over the world were turning up. And they said to Mickey, look, we want you to get down there and get a picture of Castro and Scargill in the same frame together.
Yeah.
And, of course, Mickey then had to go in via Mexico, finally got himself into Cuba, got the pictures. In those days, you couldn't,
And by the way, when Mickey got there, Cuba's much bigger than most people think.
Yeah.
He had to drive about 600 miles. He landed in one part of Cuba.
600 miles?
Yeah.
No.
I'm telling you, it
Not
is
that big.
It is. It's bigger than Britain.
Are you
Cuba,
sure?
I'm certain. I'm absolutely certain.
Well, it's a shared island, isn't it?
What's it shared
Is
with?
it not shared? No, it's not, is it?
Well, no, but the United States still retain the
Guantanamo Bay.
Guantanamo Bay
Yeah.
and the naval base and all that, and always did do.
It's not 600 miles, though, is it?
It is. It's
Are you
massive.
sure?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so he got. I mean, of course, because he hadn't seen him living in America for such a long
That's
time,
right,
he hadn't really seen Arthur Scargill for years and years and years. And he asked some guy who was standing with him on one of these promontory things where the photographers could stand, quite a long way back with a big long lens. And he said, which one of those blokes is Arthur Scargill? And the guy said, I think it's the guy sort of 3 back and 2 along.
Yeah.
So he takes these pictures, and you couldn't send them at that time. You had to go out of the country, develop the film, and then wire the prints.
Yeah.
And, of course, so he gets out of Cuba, amid presumably another 600-mile drive back to where he came from, gets to Mexico City, wires the pictures over to London, and they're going, who's this you've got in the picture? He said, where's Arthur Scargill?
Yeah.
It's not in the picture.
I know.
And he completely missed the opportunity because it turned out he was on the other side and he'd got it completely wrong.
Wouldn't you have thought somebody in London might have sent a picture of Arthur Scargill to Mickey before he shot off?
It's one of those stories, isn't it, where he didn't want to tell them he doesn't know what Arthur Scargill looks like, because he should have done.
Or it could have been, look, Mickey, you've got to get to Cuba. It's a very complicated journey. Your plane leaves LaGuardia in an hour.
Yeah,
get
right.
out there and didn't pick a picture of or something like that.
Exactly. But,
it could have been.
But, I mean, he used to tell the story against himself because it was a very funny story. I mean, and for a long time they didn't use him again.
But Mickey had so many problems like that, going to places that were the wrong place, not the wrong place, but always finding, difficulties in achieving things at the end. With the greatest respect to Mickey,
yes,
but I mean,
of course.
he was temperamental.
He would be the first person, I'm sure, to tell the funny stories about himself. But I mean, one of the things that used to happen to him on a regular basis was that one newspaper or other would blackball him.
That's right, yeah.
Because he'd rung up the picture editor in the middle of the night in a bit of a drunken stupor,
Yeah.
threatening to cut his heart out.
Yeah, and told him what he thought of him and all that kind of stuff.
And free character reading.
And what my experience with Mickey on a number of occasions is when I worked with him was if you made the slightest observation about an idea to improve the picture, he would then thrust the camera in your chest. But I mean, very, very hard, to try and break your ribs, Oh, why didn't you take the picture?
Yeah.
Well, you take them then, you're that good and you know about it. I tell you take the pictures and I'll write the words and all this kind of stuff.
He wasn't the easiest person to get along
but
with.
the other great story was, do you remember a colleague of ours called Brian Vine? He was head of the Express Bureau before they sent me out there to replace him because obviously it was time for a change.
Well, no, they didn't send you out to replace him. They sent you out to run a bureau which had one person in it.
No.
They shut the bureau down.
No.
Yeah, they did.
No. Mr. Finn became the bureau chief.
But the bureau ceased to exist.
I became his. No, he didn't. We still have the bureau building physical in the Superman building on 42nd Street.
No, I know, but it wasn't a bureau with 7 people in it. It was 2 of you.
No, hang on.
2 of you.
Hang on.
The New York Welcoming Committee.
Wait a minute.
Wait a
minute. There was Phil Finn.
Yeah.
There was Stan Mays.
Yeah.
There was Jane Seaman. There was myself. That's 4. There was the guy who used to come in and do the the teletext stuff and all that kind of stuff. That was 5. There was
You're grasping at straws now.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. We had a photographer. The guy
Derek Hudson.
Derek and all that. So there's plenty of people around. Anyway, look, just before we run out of time here.
We are going to run out of time.
The other great story, Brian Vine, for some unknown reason, he went on the road to Cuba. There's some revolution going on or something like that. He went with Brian Hitchin.
Oh, yeah.
And it must have been years before you and I were working in New York, because they weren't on the road very much, were they,
No.
in our day? They were more like, gentlemen journalists luxuriating in New York restaurants.
Yeah.
But when they were down there, I remember Brian Hitchin telling me, Brian Vine was so pompous and so in charge, they were arrested by the Cuban military in the back of an army lorry, and as they were heading off to some, godforsaken prison or something like that, Brian Vine instructed Brian Hitchin, well, Hitchin, I'm in charge here. If these swines decide to torture us, you're going first.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Great.
Amazing
Leadership.
stuff. I know, absolutely. Loads more to come. Keep your tweets coming at the two mics, at Mike Perrier, at IROMG. We're going to talk about drunkenness at Christmas. We're going to talk about Nicole Scherzinger as well. This is TalkSport.
Catch your own train, yeah.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the two mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course. Got a few tweets to read out, because we haven't done that for a while. You can tweet us at the two mics. You can find us at Mike Perrier and at IROMG. Here's one from David, who says, if Mike can't see why sport is free to air is best for fans, he's lost his mind. Some people can't afford £30 a month for sport, which is very well said.
Well, we all have it now. I mean, the vast majority of this country...
Yeah, but not everybody does.
Well, the vast majority of sports fans do. It's part of their weekly budget. And I'm not being elitist here. It's not elitist to say you get Sky TV.
No, it's
or
not.
you get BT.
No, not
or
everyone
you
can afford
get
it.
pay
And
TV.
Wimbledon is one of those great events in the summer where you don't have to pay for it, and so therefore you can watch it.
Well, you do pay for it. You pay for it.
Well,
of course
I
you
know.
pay for it.
You pay for it through your licence fee.
Of course you do.
But, that's a different argument.
Of course you do. So you're paying for it anyway. Now, on the Cuba situation,
Yes.
okay, Graham Belton, who's trying to be a smart ass...
The doctor in Mexico.
Well, is he the doctor?
He is.
Okay.
He calls himself the doctor in Mexico, yeah.
He says... Mike Parry, listen to me. Cuba is bigger than Britain. I think not. Cuba, 109,884 kilometres squared.
Right.
Britain, 229,848 kilometres squared. The
So it's
doctor in
not
Mexico.
bigger then.
You're right. Aha, but he wasn't listening to what I said. I didn't say it was bigger. I said it was longer.
I thought you said it was bigger.
No. I said it was longer. Fortunately, Nick says, Mike, unfortunately, I have to admit you are right again. Cuba is around 750 miles long.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, I
was absolutely
didn't
right.
doubt that, but
he
I
did
was
have to drive
surprised
600 miles.
when you said it was bigger than Britain. That was the bit that I was surprised about. Liz says this, I want to hear the quiz. I need to get some sleep because I will laugh myself off to sleep. My sides already ache. The quiz will be coming up, but it's a little bit later on in this hour. Robbie says, I'm from Chester and it's pronounced Owen, not Ewan. And Alex says, go and sort Porky out. Owen Morgan is Irish, and if he wants to use Gaelic references, then Ewan is pronounced Ian in Scotland.
Yeah, okay. Now,
So you haven't got that one right either.
James says quite cruelly, because I, talked about my fear of having drinks injected with a syringe, nefarious substances put into them. And James says, is Porky the new Litvinenko? And of course, Litvinenko was the Russian defector.
That's right.
In this country, who we suspect was killed by an injection of polonium.
Yeah, that's right.
In
Which
his
is like
tea.
uranium, isn't it?
Yes, like uranium in his tea, which is not a nice thing to have to go through, because you turn orange, which is not good.
Do you remember the pictures of that Ukrainian politician who
the
turned
leader,
the terrible,
the leader of the Ukraine
grey colour?
Yeah, he did.
Because he'd also been injected with something like that.
Yeah, he went sort of red as well. Now, Liz...
And here's one from Woodenhead, who says...
Woodenhead, that's
Woodenhead,
a good name, yeah.
It is a good name. Has someone used a syringe to suck out half of Porky's brain in secret?
Really? Yeah.
It would explain a lot.
Yes, that's rather a cruel one. Liz here sends another one. Mike Parry, you are definitely paranoid. Just have a drink of the stuff. We want to know what's going to happen when you do. And she says to you, MG, make him drink it. That's rather cruel if I think it's poisoned.
Yeah.
And she says, I can't believe you're doing a Christmas quiz. How useless will old Mike Mike Parry be at that, OK?
And then going back to John Lennon, Scott sent this in a little while ago, saying Roxy Music's cover of Jealous Guy is far better than John Lennon's. Certainly good Roxy Music's cover version of Jealous Guy, but I wouldn't say it's better necessarily.
I don't think any of it is. Now, here's another one. You scoffed at me, and in fact, David Levine, who thinks he's the brain of Britain, pops into the studio.
Why are you having a go at him suddenly?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because I said, though, they speak...
Careful what you say.
They 4 languages in Austria, right?
Yeah.
And he pops in and said, 98% of people in Austria speak German, right?
That's true.
So, OK, well, what about this then from William, a renowned expert on European languages?
Oh, yeah.
He says, Austria has 5 official languages as well as German. The others are Slovene, Hungarian, Croatian and Burgenland.
That is rubbish.
You are right.
Austria does not have Croatian as an official language.
I am right.
Why would they?
I am right.
Why would they?
I am right.
No, you're not.
I am, because the expert tells me I'm right.
How do you know he's an expert?
Because I know he's an expert, because he's got all that information and nobody else has got that information.
I prefer this one from David Poole, who's texted into 81089. He says, Mr. Graham, has Porky learnt 4 languages? Tripe, garbage, utter garbage and codswallop.
Well, that's very nice, isn't it? That is very nice.
Well, I think that's more to the point than your so-called expert. Why on earth would Austria have Croatian as an official language?
Well, because of the historical antecedents of its eco-geographical politico base.
Absolute rubbish.
No. That's what it's all about.
Austria's nowhere near Croatia.
Now, here's one here. It says, this is from Wannabe Rockstar. He says, could we get into the festive spirit, please, by getting Mike Parry to give us a rendition of White Christmas, as he is, of course, the modern-day Bing Crosby. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas.
Not bad.
Just like we used
Like the one we used to know.
All right. Just like the one we used to know.
Can you know how many of the next verse do you know?
Yeah. Where the snow is falling.
You don't know it, do you?
And I am
It's about the trees glistening.
Falling.
What are you doing? Crawling.
Are glistening.
That'll be what you'll be doing on Christmas Day back from the pub.
Yeah,
right?
maybe, yeah.
Did you see that terrible picture that somebody put out over the weekend, by the way, which looked as though it was you? It really did look like you, crawling along the road.
Oh, it was disgraceful.
It was absolutely a spitting image. If it wasn't you, I don't know who did that, because it was very like you.
Which one are you talking about?
There was a picture that somebody said they'd spotted you. It was one of those spoofed up pictures, obviously. It wasn't a real picture.
Yeah.
But it looked absolutely like you,
No.
just crawling along the street.
No, that was me.
Was it?
But what they did is...
How did they do that?
They took it as a still off the end of my video clip on Porky's YouTube telly station of me leaping over a postbox.
Oh, so they've used that?
They've used it. I still can
see.
leap over postboxes, and I did in that video clip. But when I came down the other side, obviously, I landed on my feet and then rolled to stop the harsh impact on my ankles. And I was doing the rolling bit. I wasn't crawling or anything. Somebody put out another disgraceful picture of a really washed-up, intoxicated old Santa, half-clothed because he'd been out in fancy dress.
That was bad Santa, I think, wasn't it?
It was shocking. It was shocking.
Talking of drunks, actually, I mean, I don't know whether I told you. I think I did tell you this on Thursday night. When I was driving in, I wondered whether last Thursday night was actually the kind of the peak of the drunken Christmas party season. Because there was a couple of people who literally were falling in the road as I was driving to work. And I know that you've had a bit of an issue. I don't know what you've seen over the weekend. I mean, I've been down in the country, so I haven't really seen too many drunken people knocking about.
This country's become disgraceful.
People are drinking ludicrous amounts.
Listen, I'm looking at some images which I've got off the internet, OK? You know, you keep accusing me of reading things in newspapers. I'm right up to date, mate. And these images are disgraceful. I've found pictures
you mean
from...
on news sites you're talking about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely. I found pictures from Manchester, from Newcastle, from Cardiff, and they're disgusting images of young men and women thrown up in bins, falling around on the floor, lying flat out on their back, on their front, policemen having to help them. All over the place, and then more here of young ladies very scantily clad. You see that, you know, out in the freezing cold and all that kind of stuff, because they pride themselves in the northeast of England have been able to do that, tottering around on high heels and all that kind of stuff.
In all seriousness, there is a massive problem in this country in terms
there is,
of the amount of people.
But what I'm getting to is
there's
even one here of a policewoman taking a picture with her camera of a police colleague. Posing, holding up a couple of drunks. I mean,
so the police are getting in, like, glamorising it.
Well, if you like. I don't know if they're glamorising it, but they've got the wrong approach to me. Now, within all these stories that I saw, Mike, there's one local authority, I think it's in Nottingham or somewhere like that, one police force has actually hired a mobile medical unit, which is like a big lorry to all intents and purposes, like
a lot of places have done that over time, haven't they?
And they put them in the town square, and then when all these drunks are incapable, they steer them onto there, and there's some medical people there who volunteered to help, restore them.
Amazing. I don't know why they bother, because
it's
in
disgraceful.
The end, in the end, I saw a video over the course of the weekend.
Yeah.
They had one of these big Santa sort of parades in London a couple of weekends ago. In fact, I was here, and there was loads of people dressed as Santa staggering around in a very drunken state.
It's disgraceful.
And kids were all around. I mean, it was awful. But at one point or other, a bunch of them all got into a fight, and they were all fighting each other in the street.
It's disgusting.
Dressed as Santa.
Now, what I say is, take away the medical units and replace them with mobile NICs,
the old
mobile
drunk
jails.
tanks.
Drunk tanks,
They did that in Edinburgh one year, funnily enough. It was quite successful.
Right, I bet it was. Now, you're going to say to me now, where do you get the drunk tanks from? Now, if you think about it, all day long...
You can use like the old Black Mariahs, can't you?
That's what I'm saying, but they're not. They're white these days.
Yeah.
The white Mariahs.
Okay.
These are the Serco-type trucks, right, which transport prisoners from... jails to courts, or from one jail to another jail.
Notoriously, they're always letting people escape out of there.
Yeah, they are, actually, But what I'm saying is, they have little cubicles on them. I know this because actually a mate of mine, fortunately, spent a bit of time in jail and told me about the misery of being driven away from court in one of those. And they are literally little cubicles with a tiny seat in them, right? And they should bung these drunks in there and just lock the door until the morning.
When I was living in Wiltshire,
far from giving them medical treatment, they should charge them for the benefit of being put into one of those overnight.
I'm a great believer in charging them if they end up at the A&E.
Definitely.
Their own drunkenness.
Definitely.
But, I mean, that would end up charging probably about 60% of the people that go to A&E.
But we encourage drunkenness in this country now by giving facilities to drunks.
It's now part of the culture.
Yes.
I mean, part of the culture in this country is to get completely bladdered when you're relatively young, and actually when you're relatively old as well. But I tell you what else I think they should do. In some of the little villages in Wiltshire, they still have on the village green. You might have seen this. They have the old sort of, which was the old kind of drunk tank. And literally, it was just a sort of a one-person jail. But they would put them there on the green.
Yeah, they would.
So that everybody could see them.
That's right.
And they would be completely and utterly embarrassed and shamed into never doing it again. Well, and I think that's not a bad idea either.
Well, on the Everton badge is that little sort of stone building in the middle,
the lighthouse,
with the pointed roof.
Exactly. It's not a lighthouse, though, is it?
That's a drunk's jail. That was originally a drunk's jail.
How appropriate.
It's not very far from Woodson Park. But that was to put drunks in and that kind of thing, and they should still have them. But what I really, really object to
by the way.
is the police turning themselves into a branch of the social services and looking after drunks. When was the last time anybody knows of anybody in this country who got arrested for being drunk and disorderly?
Well,
which used to be a major social, barrier to your way forward in life if you got done for that in the 50s or the 60s.
Yeah, not anymore.
And it should be now. It should be now.
Not anymore. We've got loads to do. Coming up, we're going to talk about Sandra the orangutan, who's now been given human rights. So let me read you this. Toby Gillies is still whining, by the way, about you beating him at the Winners and Losers.
He needs to get smarter.
His tweet says this: quite an honour taking part in the Two Mike show, but the outcome of Winners and Losers was clearly a fix. Mike Parry must have paid Mike Graham.
No.
That's what he says.
No, don't
He didn't
need
pay
to.
me. He certainly did not pay me. This is Talk Sport. We're going to talk chimps and orangutans coming up next.
Oh, then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer. Not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love. I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the Two Mikes. You'll recognise that song, of course, Mr. Parry. And you'll know why we're playing it as well, won't you?
I'm a believer.
Yeah, why are we playing it?
Because it's the monkeys.
Very good.
And the monkeys are primates, and primates are orangutans and chimps. And we've been concentrating on trying to get justice for Tommy the chimp, who's in a concrete cell in New York, and his supporters are trying to get him some level of human rights. As in,
but they
as
failed,
in
didn't they? Because it went ahead before, I think it was the New York Supreme Court or New York State Court, and they basically didn't allow the petition to be made.
That's right.
But we're going to talk to Steve Wise now, because now in Argentina, Sandra the orangutan, who's inside Buenos Aires Zoo, I presume, has been granted human rights in a landmark ruling. And Steve is the president of the Non-Human Rights Project. Steve, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for asking.
Not at all.
Steve, thank you for coming on.
We spoke to a lawyer in New York City some weeks ago when we were discussing Tommy the Chimp's case. I'm not sure if you're connected with the organisation that he was working with, but I guess you'd say this is a great big step forward, not just for Sandra the orangutan, but presumably for lots of other animals in zoos around the world.
Well, I think it's the first time that a court has recognized that any non-human animal is entitled to the writ of habeas corpus. It's an intermediate court. It's likely going up to the Supreme Court of Argentina, and so we'll have to see what kind of a decision the Supreme Court of Argentina makes. But if it upholds it, it certainly is a good starting point, and we certainly are in the process of translating it and then getting it off to all the courts that are currently considering our case, Tommy's case, the Kiko's case, 2 other chimpanzees as well in New York State.
I mean, I think it's a major step forward here, Steve. You must be aware of Tommy the Chimp, the case in New York, where they tried there and failed. You've made a major step forward in what I think is the civilization process of the world in relation to human beings and their attitude towards animals.
Well, we certainly have worked hard on Tommy's case. I've argued in front of 6 judges so far.
Yeah.
1 at the trial level and 5 at the appellate level. I'm hoping to go up to 7 more at the Court of Appeals of New York. So I know Tommy's case like the back of my hand.
Exactly, and my point that I'm leading to there is, do you think on the back of your success now with Sandra, you may be able to change the minds of those who turned you down in the Tommy case?
Well, we're getting a copy of it. We're translating it. We're sending it to them, and we're especially pointing out the fact that in their decision against us in the Tommy case about 2 weeks ago, they had said one of the reasons we lost it, they'd said no court had ever done such a thing, and so we're going to send it and it's going to say, well, 2 weeks later, some court has done such a thing.
And will they take notice of that? I mean, obviously, as you say, the situation may become reversed at a higher court, presumably in Argentina. And it's a controversial thing, I suppose, from many zoos' points of view, because, of course, the zoos will say, well, I mean, in this particular case, I don't know what Buenos Aires Zoo is like, and you may be able to tell me, but, you know, an awful lot
I don't either.
A lot of zoos will say, well, actually, what we're doing is we're preserving the species, we're helping with the the education of people about looking after these kinds of animals. It's not anymore, presumably, like, you know, these beasts are kept in very, very small cages.
Well, they may say that, but the purpose of a writ of habeas corpus is to get autonomous beings who are being imprisoned against their will out of their jail and into a place where they won't be imprisoned. And the reason that they're imprisoning Sandra or Tommy is because they somehow want them to be used to educate someone else or to do something else other than care about Sandra and Tommy. Those aren't good reasons.
No, but I mean, if it was to safeguard them from being poached or killed by poachers, isn't that a better thing?
No. Well, for example, Tommy is just sitting in a cage in a warehouse on a used trailer lot.
Yeah, no, he's not. Yeah,
but
he's a different case, isn't he? He's not actually really in a zoo. I mean, he's being. I wouldn't disagree that the circumstances under which he's being.
Sandra, I think, is in a zoo, but they're trying to move Sandra to a sanctuary as well. So there's no way that Sandra's ever going to be saving the species and any more in the Buenos Aires Zoo than she would in a sanctuary.
Absolutely. Now, Steve, for the benefit of our millions of listeners, are orangutans, who I think originate from Borneo and Sumatra, are they as intelligent and as able as Clyde the orangutan was portrayed in the Clint Eastwood films, or did Hollywood make Clyde super intelligent? I mean, is that the typical behaviour and the typical sort of attitude of comfort within the company of human beings that orangutans?
Sorry, I've lost you there.
No, that orangutans.
I've lost the question.
Orangutans pursue. What I'm saying is, was Clyde in the Clint Eastwood films typical of an orangutan's behaviour?
Well, Clyde was in movies in which, in order to do those things, he was beaten. He was beaten terribly.
That's terrible.
So
that's shocking.
The things that you're seeing is what an orangutan who's being forced to do things while being horribly beaten does.
That's horrible. Are you telling me that the orangutan in the Clint Eastwood films was bullied into doing what he did and physically violated?
He was beaten with iron rods. Make him do those things.
I never knew that.
I've never
knew
that.
that.
Has that been
disgusting.
Has that been publicised widely, Steve?
That's how I found out when I've spoken to people and I've read it, and everything I've said says that Clyde was beaten. Orangutans don't do
Surely
those sorts of things
Clint
in the wild.
Eastwood in this day and age would have denounced such a thing, wouldn't he?
Well, that really wasn't this day and age. I think it was probably 20 or even 30 years ago. I'm not. I can't recall
Maybe more,
exactly when it came out. And the same thing. You can't make elephants do what they do in circuses unless they're beaten. You can't make chimpanzees do what they do in movies unless they're beaten. Assuming that they are not, small little babies. If they're small babies, then they'll oftentimes do all sorts of things. But once they begin to grow out of babyhood, the only way you can make them do what you want is to beat them.
That's a shocking revelation that you've given us here, Steve, because as Mike has said, my broadcasting partner here, very hard to believe Clint Eastwood would have been party to such a disgraceful episode.
I don't think Clint Eastwood beat them. I think I think other people.
No,
did.
but I mean, you would think, knowing what we know now, certainly Clint Eastwood wouldn't want to associate himself with an organisation that would do that, and so it would be incredible to think that. I've been on movie sets where they had animals, and they have such things as animal wranglers. And, the animal wranglers certainly don't beat the animals.
No, they're
like
like the whisperers, the horse whisperers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, in the end, Steve, let's ask you about, where this leads. We seem to be getting a bit of a cross line here.
Yeah,
but,
sorry, I don't know what that is.
Where does this actually lead in terms of zoos? Because zoos are, in many ways, some of them are very wealthy organisations. They've got quite wealthy benefactors. I mean, they're going to fight this, aren't they? I think we may have lost him.
Steve, we lost him.
I think we may have lost him.
Okay, we lost him there. Look, I think we've got to couch this in the right terms. We've got to say to our millions of listeners, it is alleged. It is alleged.
I think that's true, because I'm not sure.
No.
Oh, okay. I think he is still there. Let's just find out. Steve,
I'm
are you
back.
still there? You are back. Okay. What I was going to say was, let's look at
where does Sandra go now?
The ramifications. I mean, how soon before Sandra, the orangutan, would be able to go from the zoo that she is currently in to some kind of sanctuary? Is it going to be a while? Is there going to be a long legal process here?
Well, if the zoo appeals, then it will go to, and I think they have 10 days to appeal. It'll go to the Supreme Court of Argentina. And having never taken a case to the Supreme Court of Argentina, I have no idea how long it's going to take them to make a ruling. And then depending upon what their ruling is, they could either order Sandra to go to a sanctuary, or they could simply order that the writ of habeas corpus be issued and remand the case back down to the trial court, where there would be further hearings on whether Sandra would go to the sanctuary.
And why Sandra, Steve? Because presumably there may be tens or dozens or hundreds of orangutans around the world. I mean, why Sandra?
Well, I think it's because the lawyers in Argentina they're Argentinian attorneys, and they are looking at non-human animals, especially apes, chimpanzees, orangutans, much like we are. We're looking at great apes, at elephants, at orcas and whales, and saying that these are the animals who are so extraordinarily cognitively complex and so autonomous and so self-determining that they can live their own lives, and they are smart beyond anything you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
That they're the ones that we're starting with first, and trying to make the courts understand that what we're doing is we're enslaving these incredibly autonomous beings, and it's morally wrong, and it ought to be legally wrong.
Yeah, it sure would. Steve, you keep up the battle, man. You've got the full support of myself here and millions of TalkSport listeners. Yeah. We are appalled at the way these animals are treated, and you are doing a fantastic job, Steve. You will have our full support.
Thank you very much. No, he has your full support.
Yeah,
he doesn't necessarily have my full support.
You'd like to see orangutans locked up all the time, would you?
I would not, no, because as ever, it's
you
not
are
as
so
simple.
cruel and heartless to these creatures.
As black and white
you
as
didn't.
that.
You didn't give them monkeys. You didn't give them monkeys about old Tommy the chimp, did you?
Yeah, very nice. I see what you did there. No, well, because what I'm saying to you is this, right? You wouldn't necessarily say that whether Sandra or Tommy, who have been given human names, by the way, so they are no longer wild animals, right? They've been in captivity for a long time. There is nothing to say that if you took those animals out of where they are now, put them into a freely open space, which might or might not be a sanctuary, that would be good for them. Second of all...
Yeah, but they should never have been put into captivity in the first place.
Maybe not, but that doesn't mean that you can then release them back into the wild.
Snatch a baby from a jungle in Burma.
Hang on. on. Yeah, but you see, you're so black
bring-
and white about
bring
this.
it
You're
up
you're
in
so
Borneo
black and white.
even.
You know nothing about...
Bring it up in captivity?
you know-
How cruel.
You know nothing about what the sanctuary alleged is going to be like. It might not be a particularly well-run sanctuary, in which case,
Shocking.
Sandra might be better off where she is. And also,
Rubbish.
I mean, as you say, and we were about to say before we got Steve back there, I think we should couch this allegation about
definitely.
about Clyde the orangutan as an allegation, because I've not read anything about how Clint Eastwood was part of a movie business that basically used to torture animals in order to make them do what they wanted them to do.
Look, Steve's an expert and he's a friend of the station.
He's
also a couple times.
He's also a lobbyist for this cause, right?
But like you,
and I've worked on. I've been at work on movies where they have animals, and they
agree.
weren't beating them in order to make them do what they wanted.
I think what Steve is saying is, in order for Clyde, the orangutan in the Clint Eastwood movies, to become
any which way but loose.
Any which way but loose, to become compliable, if you see what I mean.
Compliant.
Yeah, compliant. That's what I said. To become compliant, he may have suffered physical abuse before he actually arrived on the set. You see what I mean? So, but then he responded to human instructions or something like that. If so, I'm certain Clint Eastwood couldn't have known about that, because I'm sure he wouldn't have, as you quite rightly say, put himself as a part of anything like that. And so it's an allegation from Steve Wise that Clyde was beaten, and something we hope is not true. But then again, Steve researches these things on a very detailed level.
Well, I mean, I know you're used to taking people's facts at their word, but I'm not so sure. I prefer to check them out. I prefer to check them out. Let me tell you about this from Scott on the A15. He said, "Dear Mike, I just wanted to let you know I've purposely stayed up from feeding my son at 3 a.m. to go drop some work files off in Hull from Grimsby, just so I can listen to you too. Any excuse." And he says, "Merry Christmas to both of you." That's that famous Hull to Grimsby road that you talked about before.
Yes.
Which sort of led somewhere to
the Humber Bridge,
the M63 and the Humber Bridge.
Yeah, the Humber Bridge that goes. It's a bridge that goes nowhere. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. Well, he may be using it to get to Grimsby.
Yeah. Now, look, the old doctor in Mexico thinks he's so very smart. 4 languages in Austria. What a plank old Parry is. Well, I'm sorry, mate. I've just had an expert on who's just outlined the 5 languages that are spoken in Austria. So, doctor in Mexico, doctor treat thyself, surgeon, or whatever the expression is.
Physician heal thyself.
Physician heal thyself. That's the one.
98% of the population of Austria have German as their mother tongue. Right. Croatian is 0.5%, Hungarian 0.1%, and Slovene is also recognised in a southern province, but it's not an official language.
Yeah, but they're all spoken there. That's the point I made, and you ridiculed it as usual. And of course, I turned out to be right.
Well, you might as well say that in this country there are about 55 different languages that are actually spoken by lots of people from different countries. It doesn't mean it's the official language of England.
I'm sorry, I said there were 4 languages. I got it wrong. There were 5. So sorry about that, fellas. I underestimated it. Of course, Mike Graham thought it was all rubbish, but what does he know?
Yeah, well, I can tell you a great deal of things that I know, actually.
Yeah.
Here's one, where are we, from David, who says, "Wrong again, Parry. Most people I know want it." He's talking about the Wimbledon going free to air.
Right, okay.
But are outpriced. Some priorities come first. Good, you can budget that in your finances. But that's the point, you see. Not everybody can afford to have free to pay for the sports that they want to watch on TV. And the problem for the BBC, and I know it's a massive argument, but I mean the problem for the BBC is that they're getting priced out of the market.
Of course
because quite rightly, we, the licence payers, say, well, why should you be bidding ridiculous amounts of money for football? Why should you be paying ludicrous amounts of money for the Grand Prix?
You're a public service organisation.
That's not what the money should be spent on.
Exactly. You spend it on public service facilities for the taxpayer and the licence payer. Now then, Michael says, never mind the chimps, what about the cruelty of keeping old Mike Parry locked up in TalkSport Towers? It's a bit harsh,
Well,
isn't
you
it?
get out once in a while for a bit of exercise, don't you? Here's one from Gareth, who says he's aged 34 with no GCSE passes. He says Ewan, which is pronounced Owen, not Ewan, as in Ewan Thomas, the former Welsh athlete. Sorry to be pedantic, but quite annoying all the same. And here's one from Peter, the true red Man United fan. He said another song for Billy J. Kramer was "Do You Want to Know a Secret?"
Yeah, that was the one.
And he says,
"Listen, do you want to know a secret?
But the Beatles recorded that
Let
one.
me whisper in your ear.
But the Beatles recorded that, didn't they?
Yes, they did, but it was...
Well, they didn't give it to him to sing then?
Yeah, they did. He claims he recorded it first.
Does he?
Yeah, he said that
Really?
song was written for me. I recorded it, the Beatles did a later version.
It's one of my favourite Beatles songs, that, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was a very early one. I think I thought some of the early Beatles stuff was very simplistic, so to speak, you know.
But that was what made it great.
Yeah, I suppose it did, yeah.
Surely.
Right, great one here. It says, hello, guys, 2 mics. Apparently in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles have a courtroom and cells in the stadium for drunks to be dealt with on
Do
the
they?
spot. That's good, isn't it? You know, considering we were trashing the number of people who we think in this country listen to the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't know why Pongo has sent this, but I'm going to read it anyway. Quite an honour taking part in At the 2 Mics, but the outcome of winners and losers was clearly a fix. But Pongo didn't take part, did he?
Toby Gillies.
Oh, is that Pongo?
Well, what does it say?
Pongo and the 2 Mics favourite a tweet you mentioned it. I don't know. Oh, I see.
I read this out like about 15 minutes ago.
Well, did you? Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Which is
you know.
just more evidence that you don't listen to a word I say.
No. I was just being
You're the only
completely,
person that
completely
can do
democratic.
a two-person show without paying any attention to the person sitting next to you.
No, completely wrong again. I think you get a bit paranoid about it, Mike, you know. It's because I have such a depth of knowledge, I feel it necessary to share it with the audience, our millions and millions of listeners.
Now,
okay?
somebody's rung in to say the first Clyde in the Every Which Way But Loose movie was beaten so severely he died of a brain hemorrhage and was replaced by a different Clyde for the second film, which again is, I'm sorry to say, an allegation. I don't
Golly.
know. I've not heard that before.
That's terrible.
Let's move on to a different subject because it was pointed out to me within recent days that you once joined something called the Band of Hope.
Band of Hope, I did.
What is that? I don't
Well-
even know what that is.
Band of Hope, I was about 8 years of age, right, and used to go to Sunday school on a Sunday morning.
Right.
You know,
Well, you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah, every sort of young
You go to
kid
Sunday
did.
school on a Saturday. I didn't go to Sunday school.
Well, didn't you?
No.
Well, what sort of religion did your parents follow?
I was raised as a Catholic.
As a Catholic?
Yeah.
Well, don't Catholics have Sunday school?
Well, I never went there.
Well, I've been there. I tell you what,
I was an altar boy, so I used to go to church on a Sunday.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, that's the same thing.
Well, no, it's not.
Of
Being
course
an
it
altar
is.
boy is assisting the priest with the mass.
Yeah, I know, but then after
Nothing to do with Sunday school.
after the church service, you went to Sunday school.
No, I didn't.
Anyway, the point of the story is, right, that...
So what's the Band of Hope, though?
well, the Band of Hope was in the mid-1800s, right, drink got such a grip on people in this country.
Yeah.
You know, Gin Lane and all
Yes.
that kind of stuff was very, very prominent.
Mother's Ruin.
Mother's Ruin. You know, people were so poor in those days, you know, they had little to comfort them in life. They took to very cheap gin.
Right.
Because gin was made in the East End of London at a penny a bottle and
Sort
all
of
that
like
kind of stuff.
bootleg type stuff.
Well, kind of, but there's no tax.
Homemade.
There's no tax on it in those days. The tax is on windows, but there was no tax on gin.
Right.
In fact, the tax on the windows is the modern day equivalent of the mansion tax. You know,
Yes,
if you
I
had a
suppose
big
it
house
was,
and had
yeah.
windows, you
Right.
paid tax on it. You know,
That's
it's a
why
scandal.
we still see a lot of windows bricked
Exactly,
up.
bricked up. That's right. Absolutely right. You've got it in one. But the country was in the grip of a drunken orgy.
Was it?
Or certainly, you know,
Well,
intoxication.
very much like we were saying it kind of is now.
Yeah, I suppose it is now.
Parts
yeah,
of it
yeah.
are, anyway.
But then anyway, so what happened was in the 1857, around there somewhere, a guy who was a vicar decided that he had to offer hope to youngsters who saw their parents in intoxicated states all the time. So he started the Band of Hope.
Right.
And if you went along and enlisted,
So was it a band then? Was it like a band that played music? You mean that
No. It was a group of people.
Oh, right.
Of like-minded thinking people.
And was it do-gooders types?
Well, not do-gooders, but teetotalers.
Right.
It was the temperance
And
movement.
you joined that? Well, you would join
I
it
did.
as a child. You
I did.
Drink as a child.
I did join it. Join at 8. No, but what you do is when you join at 8, when you join the Band of Hope, Band of Hope. It sounds so ridiculous now.
Band of Hope and
when-
Glory.
When you join the Band of Hope, you sign the pledge.
Do you?
You've heard this thing about have you signed the pledge? I mean, it's been a
I remember people saying that.
it was a
but-
joke in Fleet Street
Yeah, yeah.
all the years. Oh, he signed the pledge.
Yeah.
I.e., usually it meant that somebody had contracted a sexually transmitted disease.
Oh, really?
And had to stop drinking for 3
I
weeks
didn't
to
know
take the
that.
penicillin.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, you see what I
Right,
mean?
okay.
Yeah, that's what it usually meant. Yeah.
Goodness me.
I just thought
What
that
a
you know
terribly
that.
debauched life you
well,
must have had.
Well, yeah,
Man.
but well, somebody told me that. I don't know anything about it. But anyway. So you join the Band of Hope and you
Right.
sign the pledge. And,
Right.
what you're signing
What,
is...
at the age of 8?
Oh, yes, because they got you early because the pledge was that you would never touch a drop of alcohol
Your
in your
parents
life.
were quite happy for you to do this, were they?
Yeah, pretty happy.
Really?
Yeah, in fact, my parents didn't drink in those days at all.
Right.
My father had come out of the Second World War and, you know, he just decided that he had to create some sort of a life. So he smoked, and my mum smoked. My mum smoked Woodbines. Everybody
Yeah.
smoked in those days.
Yeah, of course.
And my dad smoked Capstan full strength. But they didn't drink. drink at all. So I signed the pledge for the Band of Hope, and that should have kept me sober all my life.
Well, it's not working well, is it? You'd have to
sort of went off the rails a bit.
So how soon after you signed the pledge did you have your first drink then? Presumably it was when you were a young sort of teenager.
No. It was when I remember quite well. I went to a wedding when I was about 12. And, I was so young, I still had short trousers on, those days. You did, at that 12. And I had a baby sham.
Right.
And I remember liking it so much, I had another one.
Right.
And then after that, I always wanted...
The rest of it was a bit of a blur, officer.
That's right, yeah. and after that, I broke the pledge, obviously. But
did you not feel any strange kind of sense of guilt then that you had to then...
No.
Presumably the Band of Hope had been disbanded by this time.
Oh, no, the Band of Hope is still going. Band of Hope is still going.
But did you not have to keep going back and forward to the Band of Hope people?
Well, because you attended Sunday school, you were automatically, sort of surveyed by the Band of Hope people, make sure you're on the straight and narrow and all that kind of stuff. But far from feeling any guilt at signing the pledge of the Band of Hope, I felt resentment that I'd been made to sign it in the first place, because probably one of the great joys of my life has been the consumption of alcohol.
Yes,
and without it, sorry,
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And without it, my life would have been quite an empty morass of, a sort of a wasteland, a desert, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in the end, no, I resented becoming a member of the Band of Hope. But I don't mock or deride people who are in the Band of Hope, and I hope that they have great lives.
Still going then?
Yeah, it's the Band of Hope and the temperance movement are still going.
Temperance society,
I just don't think that they're terribly popular these days. Don't think they've got a lot of members.
No.
But I'm not deriding or mocking people who are in it. It's good for them.
Well, looking around the country, it's hard to believe anybody's in a temperance society.
Well, it's hard to believe the Band of Hope's got many followers these days. When you look at the youngsters falling all over the place on
amazing
Friday
if there's anybody out there who actually was in the Band of Hope as well. If you were, do let us know.
But I do support the Band of Hope because for those who want it...
Look at the time and look into the light for a moment.
We should all support the Band of Hope.
Yeah, all right, that's enough about the Band of Hope.
I don't want a lot for Christmas. There is just one thing I need. I don't care about the presents underneath the Christmas tree. I just want you for my own, more than you could ever know. Make my wish come true. All I want for Christmas is you.
Now, listen very carefully to this particular song because there will be a question about it in a moment. Okay?
Right.
First of all, of course, welcome to the Porky Christmas Quiz. And what we need to do
Who are you welcoming,
is...
me or the audience?
I'm welcoming you and the audience.
Oh, right. Why do you have to welcome me? Because, I am the participant in the quiz.
You are? Well, because I thought it would be a nice thing to do, just to say welcome to the quiz. Because
so before you stitch me up by gerrymandering all the questions...
I'm not going to stitch you up.
Or the answers, more likely. Gerrymandering the answers, you thought you'd just soft-soap me, yeah?
No,
Typically,
I didn't think I would soft-soap you at all. As ever, the questions have been compiled by an independent group of quiz masters, and if you
headed by you,
nothing to do with me.
Of course,
if you get one of the answers correct, you will hear this sound. Ho ho ho! Hey! Very good. And if you get one wrong, you'll hear this sound.
I say bah, humbug.
Now,
okay.
Now you recognise all of that. Now, you remember the song you heard as we started?
Yes.
Who is it?
What do you mean?
Who's singing it?
Who's singing it?
Yeah.
That's...
All I Want for Christmas
All I Want for Christmas is you. Right, that is... I know that is. In fact, I'm certain who it is.
Go on.
It's Kylie Minogue.
I say bah, humbug.
It's not.
Who is it?
It's Mariah Carey.
Mariah Carey?
Mariah Carey.
Yeah,
Everybody
but more than
knows
one
that.
version have been done of that song.
Yeah, but the one we played is by Mariah Carey.
Yeah, well, Kylie Minogue sung it as well.
Well, I'm sorry, that's the wrong answer.
No, she did sing it.
0 out of 1.
No.
She didn't sing that one. It doesn't matter whether she sang it as well.
If you try and listen to Kylie Minogue and Mariah Carey they both sound exactly the same
the one I
because they're at the same pitch of voice. They're the same pitch of voice because they're professionals.
Well, as far as my
I've been stitched up.
As far as my research team is concerned, Kylie Minogue sang Santa Baby. It was a completely different song. Question number 2. Who plays Kris Kringle in the 1994 remake of A Miracle on 34th Street?
What?
Who plays Kris Kringle in the 1994 remake of A Miracle on 34th Street?
Miracle on 34th Street. I know who's in that.
Do you?
Lord Attenborough was in that. I'm not saying that's my answer.
That's not
my
your
answer. But I'll make sure I've got the right film. I've got the right film, haven't I?
Well, I can't give you any clues. I'm not empowered to give you any clues.
Now, hang on. 94/04/14. That's 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Could Dickie Attenborough have been able to... Who was Kris Kringle in the film?
Well, he was the figure that actually ended up being like Father Christmas, basically.
Oh, right, OK. Well, in that case, it was Richard Attenborough.
Correct.
Hey! Ooh.
1 out of 2. That's 50%.
Ooh.
Calm down. Question number 3. Where is Christmas celebrated first in the world?
Sydney.
Incorrect.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It's incorrect.
What's the answer?
Samoa.
Samoa is Sydney.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
It's a very different country.
No, it's not.
It's
well, it is a
completely
different country, but it's the same part of the world.
Yeah, but Samoa is before Sydney when they celebrate Christmas.
Again, that's a stitch-up. That's like saying...
That's like saying England and Germany are the same place.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Two different countries.
It's not. It's like saying London and Hampstead is the same place.
No, it's not.
That's what it is.
No, Samoa is a different country. 1 out of 3.
No, that's a stitch-up.
Question number 4.
Nobody knows it's Samoa because we all see the fireworks in
that's
Sydney
New Year
first.
you're talking about.
I know it is, but it's the same. Well, that's only a week later.
They don't have fireworks in Samoa. You can't afford them. Question number 4. What are the main ingredients of eggnog?
Eggnog.
Eggnog.
That is night and mornings. I drink fornings, advocacy. No, hang on, that's the same stuff.
No, it isn't.
It is. Advocacy and eggnog's the same thing.
It's not.
Right, you want to know what's in eggnog?
Yeah, I want to know what's in it.
Right. Egg.
Correct. There is, raw egg. I'll give you that.
Raw egg.
Yeah.
And
you're not going to get this, are you?
Of course I'll get it. Raw egg, and I believe it could be. What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at?
What do you believe?
Hang on. I'm not saying this is my answer, but I'm thinking Galliano. I'm thinking Galliano. Oh, right, okay. It's not Galliano.
It's not Galliano.
No. It's raw egg.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking gin. No, we don't think it's gin, right.
I don't know why I'm giving you all these clues.
Hang on.
I'll have to hurry you.
Hang on. Raw egg and...
I'm being asked for your final answer.
Nog. What's nog mean? What does it mean? Nog. Is it some sort of clue? Well, I think
nog
it's...
in the nog.
I think it's raw egg and spirits.
Yeah, no, incorrect.
I say bar.
Milk.
Humbug.
Milk, sugar, raw egg, nutmeg, vanilla, and brandy. That's the answer. So
well, I mean, see,
1 out of 4.
No. You see, that's such a complicated recipe that it was impossible to get those ingredients.
Well, you only got 1.
Yeah, but hang on. How many ingredients will I have to have got to get that right?
Well, you probably could have got 4 out of 6. You'd have been all right. You didn't have a clue.
Utter rubbish.
You didn't have a clue.
Rubbish.
Plus, you had about 4 guesses. Question number 5. Bob Cratchit is a character in which Festive novel?
Who?
Bob Cratchit.
The
light of recognition has gone off in his head.
I think Bob Cratchit is in Dickens's Christmas Carol.
Correct.
Hey! Woo!
That's 2 out of 5. Question number
6.
6. Where is Christmas Island?
Christmas Island is in the South Pacific.
I'll give you that.
Thank you.
It's an Australian territory in the Indian Ocean, 360 kilometres south of Java.
Yeah, I knew that.
2,600 kilometres northwest of what? Just for the hell of it. See if you know. If you knew where it was. 2,600 kilometres northwest of where?
Australia.
Perth, yeah.
Perth, yes. Perth.
Right. So you got 3 out of 6.
Ooh,
not bad.
That's not bad.
Question number 7. Where did the 3 Kings come from? I don't mean the pub in Portsmouth either.
No, exactly. Yeah, I've been there. Where did the 3 Kings come from?
Yes.
To go to Bethlehem, you mean?
Where did they come from? Where are they from?
Which country? I believe they originated in the deserts of Jordan.
Incorrect.
No, it's not incorrect.
I say bar.
It's not
Humbug.
incorrect.
Nobody knows where they came from.
Oh, that's a stupid.
No, it's
that's
not.
a stupid answer.
They came from the east. That's all everybody knows.
Well, Jordan is east of
No, it's not.
Bethlehem.
It could have
North,
been
south,
it's
east.
generally thought to be either Babylonia, Persia, or the Yemen.
Well, that's rubbish because in those
Well,
days,
it's
that was
rubbish.
2,000 years ago. The dividing lines between countries were all different.
3 out of 7.
It could have been Jordan.
No.
that's pathetic. That is
3 out of 7.
to say there
Calm
is no
down.
answer to this question. It's not a
Well,
question.
you should have said they came from the east, and you got it right.
No.
Question number 8. Where does the Trafalgar Square Christmas tree come from?
It comes from the people of Norway
Yes, correct.
as a gift for the Second World War.
I'll give you that. It's actually the city of Oslo, but I'll let you
Yeah,
have that.
yeah.
So that's 4 out of 8, isn't it?
Oh, this is great.
Now have a listen to this song.
Okay. Can't hear anything.
I can't hear anything either.
Which song am I supposed to be listening to?
You're supposed to be listening to this song.
Right. Okay. It'll burst into the eardrums in a
It
minute.
will, yeah. Any second now.
No problem.
Light and we banish shade.
And in our world of plenty, we can spread a smile of joy.
Yeah.
Do you recognise it?
It's Band-Aid, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a new one.
Right.
You didn't know that, did you?
Yes.
Can you name me 3 of the artists on it?
What, on the new Band-Aid single?
Yes.
Harry Styles was definitely on it.
One Direction, yes.
Saw him going in.
Yeah.
Also, Bono.
Bono was on it, yeah.
Yeah, that's 2.
So one more.
Right, okay. And a third person on it was... a popular female singer.
A popular female
Popular
singer.
female singer.
Yeah, almost certainly.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not going to give you it for that.
Yeah, well, hang on. Also, I know. One of the guys in Take That.
I need a name.
Gary Barlow.
No.
Jason Orange.
No.
Right, okay. I'll tell you who else was on it.
I'm going to have to hurry you.
The girls in that band called the Little Minxes.
I need a name.
Little Minxes. Who's in the Little Minxes? I don't know.
Well, I'm not going to tell you.
Listen, I can see all their faces now, but I can't. Who is it?
We're running out of time.
Bono. Well, One Direction's more than one person.
No.
You said name 3. I said
name another one then.
Harry Styles and his bandmates.
No.
In One Direction.
Not getting it. There's loads of names you could be naming me. You could be naming. You should say Chris Martin. You could say Sam Smith. You could say Ellie Goulding. You could say Seal. You could have said.
I don't know who
Paloma
Ellie
Faith.
Goulding is.
You could have said Emily Sandé.
I don't know
You could
who
have
Emily
said Ed
Sanders
Sheeran.
is.
All right. Well, 4 out of 9. Final question, right?
Yeah,
Final
yeah.
question.
You
See if
cheated
get-
me on that one.
See if you get 5
I
out of
named
10.
One Direction. There's 5 people in One Direction.
Can you name Santa's 8 reindeer?
Don't be ridiculous.
What do you mean, don't be ridiculous?
So there aren't 8 names for Santa's reindeers. And we only ever knew of one reindeer called Rudolph, the one who got bullied.
You're not familiar with The Night Before Christmas, then?
Well, I'm not to that extent. No, that's a
Really?
ludicrous question. I'm sorry. I just don't recognise that question. That's not
Well, there are-
not on at all.
Rudolph actually was added later.
I say
Yeah.
bah.
That's wrong.
Humbug.
Yeah.
So you got 4 out of 10.
No,
Do you want me to tell you who they are?
I'm not
Dasher?
interested. I'm not interested.
Dasher,
No, I don't want to
Dancer,
know. I don't want to know.
Prancer,
no,
Vixen,
you can
Comet,
shove your
Cupid,
reindeers. I'm
and
not
Donna
interested.
and Blitzen.
Not interested at all.
You've never
Made up
heard The Night
names.
Before Christmas?
Made up names. Never to that extent. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting so fed up with the way that you literally pull these questions apart and put them back together again, depending on what I say.
Well, you got 4 out of 10, right?
No, I didn't get 4 out of
Which
10. I
is
got at
curious.
least 5 out of 10
No.
because I got the names right of the people on the Band-Aid
No, you
single.
didn't. You didn't get any
I
of them
did.
right. The thing that's most amazing is that 4 of these questions were asked of you at the live show we did at the Head and Chickens.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What, a Christmas quiz?
Yeah.
When was that? When did that happen?
That happened last time we were at the Head and Chickens.
Right, okay, yeah. Right, I see.
And I think you got
see.
I think you got the Band-Aid question right there.
Did
No,
I?
I think that was because people were shouting the answers to you.
Really? Yeah, well, I wish a few people would shout the answers to me in these studios
Well, that's not
a bit
allowed.
more often.
4 out of 10 is about average, though, so it's okay. It's a good Christmas. It's a good Christmas scenario. And of course,
stitched up again.
Christmas Eve we're here at 10 o'clock till 1 in the morning. Christmas Day we're also here from 10 until 1. And William says, looking forward to your exchanging of presents to each other.
Yes.
Is it Christmas Eve or Christmas Day? I think we should exchange gifts on Christmas Day.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. We should.
I think we'll do that. Hopefully,
get the festive spirit in
you'll
the
find
right place.
something to make up for all the horrible things you've said to me over the course of the year, and you can give me something pleasant. Coming up next, we've got loads and loads of stuff to do. In the last hour, we're going to have a look at the front pages and the back pages, of course, as well. We are the two Mikes. This is TalkSport.
So this is Christmas, and what have you done? Another year over, and a new one just begun. And so this is Christmas.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the two Mikes. I know that every time you hear this song, it makes you burst into tears.
It does a bit. It does.
I don't want you to burst into tears. Have a listen to this instead.
Think of the waste of John Lennon.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get all maudlin about it, okay?
Well,
Christmas is not a time for being
it.
maudlin. Christmas is a time for celebration. We're very nearly upon Christmas Eve.
Well, he was killed on December the 8th, so it's very close to Christmas.
It was close to Christmas. Chris the Hammer has texted into 81089. He says, Mike G, I've just had a great idea. Next time ITV do a celebrity The Chase, put Porky up for it. They could contact the BBC and borrow Ronnie Corbett or Willie Carson's box to stand on. What is The Chase?
Oh, I don't know. No idea.
Well, you're the man that knows about television.
Well, I only observe, programmes which are good. I've got some here, and already our very, very astute and alert listeners are picking up on how you cheated on the...
How did I cheat?
A guy called Axel Stone Orange says the two Mikes was a stitch-up on the quiz, and then Baz says Porky... being conniving on the quiz as usual, always looking for pointers. Yeah. So he's having a go at me.
No, he's having a go at you.
Rather than you.
Right.
And Axel again, admit it and stop complaining. On, say, 15-1, for example, you wouldn't last long. Stitch up. So I'm not sure who's
the trouble is you've got people who are constantly calling me out for supposedly, as you call it, gerrymandering the quiz. And it's nothing to do with that. You know, I ask you pretty straightforward questions, and you either get them right or you don't get them right. And, 4 out of 10 is generally about the average of your score. So
no, I don't agree. Listen, I've got a great one here from a guy called Kaimin. Okay?
Kaimin?
Yeah, and he says, Merry Christmas, guys. Try and say it in Scots. And here we go, okay?
Yeah, go on.
Nolag Credhael. Nolly Crihal. That's pronounced
Nolly Crial.
Nolly Crial.
Yeah.
That
doesn't sound very Scottish, does it?
It's the Scottish Gaelic for Happy Christmas.
Right.
Nolly Crial. Okay?
Well,
Nolly Crial.
Nolly Crial. Well, we'll find out from people whether that's the right way to do it. Gareth in Gravesend says the best thing about a debate on how to pronounce Owen or Ewan, as it doesn't sound anything like Kevin Peterson. As a nation, we welcomed him with open arms for whatever reason, and he made his bed when disrespecting Andrew Strauss with his banter, and then releasing his ego-driven book, and still trying to look like he's been misunderstood. He should count himself lucky an open and diverse nation took him on in the first place. Hashtag reap what you sow, Mr. P, and enjoy the money.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that.
I mean, again, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Piers Morgan still goes banging on about why Kevin Peterson should be in the team and why he can continually be is left out, which completely foxes him as a cricket fan. And I can see why that he would say that. But equally, I can kind of sympathise in some ways with the England cricket team who don't want any part of him, really.
I sympathise completely. They think that he was a really poisonous influence on the dressing room. And the one thing that, the one thing I can't get over with Piers and with all the other supporters of Peterson is he has admitted sending the texts to the South African changing room.
Right. He's never said what was in them, though,
Well, exactly. The actual content of them is disputed, i.e., did he actually suggest to a couple of South African players the best way to get Andrew Strauss out as a batsman?
Or was he just being generally kind of abusive towards him?
Yeah. But, I mean, you shouldn't consort with the enemy like that anyway. You know, he played for us and not for them. And to be a winner, you've got to be... Talking about winners, by the way. Winners. Lewis Hamilton. Winner.
He certainly is.
I read an interview with Nicole Scherzinger.
Oh, yeah.
Who's his very beautiful girlfriend, obviously, you know. And it was quite amazing. She went through the fact that she had a pretty troubled childhood, in terms of relations with her parents and all that kind of stuff, and battled her way up to the top of the showbiz tree. But she was asked, all the usual questions about, what's she best at and did she like cooking and all that kind of stuff.
Biggest regret in your life, and
biggest regret and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But this one was, what is your worst fault?
Right.
She was asked what is your best trait? She says, I can be kind and generous to friends, something like that. loyalty and all that. What's your worst fault? She said, I'm always late.
Really?
That was her answer. Now, what kind of
Some
answer is that?
people are always late, aren't they?
No, but what kind of answer is that? I'm always late. Shouldn't you say, well, I'm not going to be late in future because it's incredibly rude.
No, because
it's incredibly rude.
But people can't do it. People who are perennially late are always late for a reason. It's not because they don't leave enough time. It's literally because they're always late. It's part of their, their makeup. Means that they're always rushing and they're always late.
It's
I mean, we all know people like that.
Thing.
We all know people like that.
Yeah, but I hope she wasn't saying, well, I'm deliberately late to emphasise to people how important I'm compared to them.
Well, some showbiz people are like that, aren't they?
Of course they are.
I mean, how many times have you gone to interview some celebrity, right?
Yeah.
When they've actually granted you an interview as opposed to you creeping through the bushes,
yeah.
Their private hotel.
Absolutely.
And the PR's there, and in fact, when we went to interview those guys from the movie, do you remember?
Yeah. Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell and Danny. Was it not Donnie Wahlberg? It was the other one, wasn't it? Mark Wahlberg. And
I didn't even know Will Ferrell was.
I remember we were sitting in a room, in a sort of ante-room in a Soho hotel, very plush Soho hotel. And what they do is they wheel these guys in, and they have 10 minutes with each kind of organisation. And you couldn't believe we were waiting there.
No.
And I mean, I was trying to explain to you that Will Ferrell was one of the most famous big stars in Hollywood.
Yes.
And you were like, well, why are we waiting for him?
Yeah.
You were quite incensed.
Yeah. Well, I was a bit.
But they do quite often keep you waiting, don't they?
I think it's a height of rudeness. I've spoken to loads of showbiz celeb type journalists who say the worst person in the world timing is Naomi Campbell.
Oh yeah,
and that sometimes you wait 4 or 5 hours, and then a note comes down saying we can't do it today because she's got other things on and all that kind of stuff.
She doesn't fancy it.
Yeah, but
some of them do it as well. Some of the singers do it when they're supposed to. The show starts at 9 o'clock. They show up at 10:30.
Oh well, the worst one was Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Didn't he show up 2.5 hours late?
Yeah, at the
and the point is,
and all the kids had to stay out too late to see him,
or go home, half an hour to the concert to get the last train home or something, because they're only 12 or 13 and they're with their mum and dads and all that kind of stuff.
Now, consequently, a thought occurs to me. What would you describe as your worst trait?
Well, I always try to be on time. I always try to be on time.
That's not what I asked you.
I think. What did you ask me?
I asked you what's your worst trait.
My worst.
That was her worst trait, was being late all the time.
My worst trait.
Yeah. How about not listening to me?
No. I listened to you.
You didn't listen to the
question. I tell you what.
Go on.
I get ridiculous bursts of over generosity.
Do you?
Yeah, for some known reason.
Right.
I don't know why.
Well, it's not an unknown reason. We know why you do that.
Why?
You do it to make yourself feel good.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think if I've failed the world, or if I've failed,
well, it's not that
people,
serious. You haven't failed anything.
No.
I'm just
I
asking what you think your worst trait is.
No, I do. I do things like. I don't
it's
mind.
like when you hand out 20 quid notes to all the people in an Indian restaurant.
Yeah, I do, yeah, sometimes.
Or you sometimes hand money to...
Well, if it's Christmas, in fact, I've just remembered, I've forgotten to leave my paper boy a tip, and he'll be there before I get home. So I'll...
Won't he be there tomorrow?
He'll be there tomorrow.
Well, you can catch him tomorrow.
Yeah, I can catch him tomorrow.
How much do you give the paper boy then?
20 quid.
20 quid?
Yeah.
That's quite a nice tip.
And I give the postman
What
the
about
same.
the bin men? Do you give them a tip?
Well, you never see the bin men in my place because they're communal bins downstairs.
Right.
So...
they don't come round asking for a Christmas box?
No.
Mind you, they wouldn't be able to get past your iron frame.
No, they
door,
wouldn't.
Would
No, they wouldn't. But the paper boy slipped a Christmas card through the door a couple of days ago. Happy Christmas. Well,
nice.
I mean, that's an invitation for a tip, isn't it? Obviously,
I suppose so.
Which I don't mind because this guy literally comes around with his little trolley in the mornings, no matter how dark or light it is, no matter how cold or warm it is.
To be honest, there can't be many people like you who now order papers that much.
There can't be. Well, you see, that's a funny thing, Mike. That's an interesting thing. Now, when I was a paper boy, right, and I was a great paper boy for a number of years.
Delivered to practically every house, presumably.
Delivered to practically every house, and I'd take sometimes 3 bags of papers on my back.
Yeah.
I was like a colossus. I'd have.
I can't imagine you were like a colossus
Yeah,
at all.
I was. I had 2 bags of papers on my back, one slung over each shoulder, right, like crosswise, so I didn't fall off my bike.
Yeah.
And I had another bag on my crossbar.
Right.
Okay. And I mean, my bike was like it was like.
Why don't you just take one at a time and come back for the other one?
No. Well, because that wasted time. This was like a newsagent shop on wheels. I'm telling you, it was amazing. And
was that a trike you were on?
No, you fool! It was my rally bike, wasn't it? With my 6 gears and all that kind of stuff.
6 gears.
Yeah. And anyway, the point of my story is...
Yeah, what is the point?
Is that in those days, I used to get paid quite handsomely for delivering papers. I thought it was quite handsome, considering I was like,
like
12 or 13.
Shilling or something?
Oh, no, you got pounds. Got pounds. At the end of the week, maybe 3 or 4 quid or something like that. Oh, yeah, I did a lot of paper rounds. Because I only did it in the school holidays, and Mum and Dad wouldn't let me do it when I was at school, because I got to concentrate on schoolwork.
Sure.
But I would turn up at 5:30 and I'd be out delivering morning papers till about 8:30 because every time I finished my round, I'd come back and somebody hadn't turned up and I'd take those papers out. And then in the evenings, I used to deliver the Liverpool Echo and the Manchester Evening News. Yeah. And again, to probably, 100 houses or something like that.
So what did you do in between? During the school holidays?
I was a schoolboy.
Well, you said you did it in holidays, though.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
So
I'd go and play football all day, wouldn't I?
Okay.
In the playing fields. And then my mates would always say,
so
where you going?
So you've always been a workaholic, in other words, haven't you?
No, workaholic. My mates would say, where are you going? I said, I've got to go and deliver the evening papers, the Liverpool Echo. Well, come back here, you can't just walk off the football field. Well, I used to have to. And on a Fridays, I spent all day delivering the weekly newspapers, the Chester Chronicle, which I subsequently went on to work for.
Which must have been a great moment,
and the Cheshire Observer.
To go and work for the paper that you used to deliver.
Well, there you go, you see.
Yeah.
I used to live the Daily Express, of course, and I ended up as the news editor of the Daily Express. That was quite something,
Some people say you should have stayed delivering.
My father was quite pleased with that. But anyway, the point of my story is we didn't charge the customers for delivery in those days, whereas I pay £1 a day for delivery now.
Right.
£1 a day. £1 a day, that's quite a lot.
What an amazing insight into the world of your finances.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking up the last 3 minutes telling me that story.
Well, the audience wanted to know.
No, I asked you what your worst trait was.
Yeah, I've just told you, I haven't got one.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, let's talk about a couple of other things that have been gauging your... Go on.
Just before we go on, Mike, sorry, and this is a very serious point. We, at the start of the show, talked about our knowledge of George Square, where this terrible incident took place with the garbage truck.
Yeah.
The Millennium Hotel, which we thought was the Carlton George renamed, is, in fact, if you remember, the hotel right in the middle of George Square, next to the Carlton George.
Oh, okay.
See what I mean?
Oh,
Do you remember?
Okay.
Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure it's the one closest to Queen Street Station, isn't it?
No, it's not, because
not?
it faces right onto the square.
Right.
And if you came out of the Millennium, you turn right to go to Queen Street Station and past the Carlton George on the junction across from
on the other side,
that. You see what I mean?
Okay.
See what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, just to make that clear, just in case anybody was misled earlier.
Well, we'll be looking at how the papers are treating that story coming up a little bit later on in this hour. Now, you wanted to talk about smoking and a discarded cigarette butt, because there's a big sign downstairs and in lots of places around London now saying that basically discarded cigarette ends are as bad as littering, and if you get caught doing it, you will be fined. The problem with doing that, of course, and putting them into these dustbins now, it's all very well if they've got little holes so you can put it through. Yeah. But you see some people stubbing out the cigarette on the top of the dustbin, which eventually leads to, if it's a windy day like it has been lately, all of these kind of, hot sparks flying all over the place and possibly kind of, injuring people.
Well, it's not just that, but it's what it does to wildlife. Now, I've done some research on this because... Yeah, what it does to wildlife.
What do you mean, what it does to wildlife?
Well, I'm going to tell you now. It'll horrify you. And in fact, this should shock you into stop smoking.
Really?
If nothing else does. Right, did you know... I've researched this because somebody told me, I can't remember who it was, but one time when I was down at the ponds, quite recently, feeding
the ducks.
You met
somebody down there, did you?
Well, of course I met somebody down there.
Well, who else is down there at that time in the morning?
Well, it wasn't. Perhaps it was later. Perhaps it was a weekend. Perhaps it was a weekend. I went a bit later, 7 or 8 o'clock or something, and meet people walking their dogs and all that who know these things because they're, responsible members of society who take care with wildlife, right? Right, so I went home and did some research on this after learning that ducks, swans, geese, birds, woodpeckers... have their stomachs full of cigarette butts.
Really?
It's been found by vets and all that. They think that they're full all the time, so they don't eat and they starve to death.
I've never heard that.
Right, well, I hadn't, but get this, right? Did you know 6 trillion cigarette butts every year, of 6 million cigarette butts in the world every year, 4.5 trillion of them, 4.5 trillion, are flicked onto the road.
Are they?
They're not put into a container.
Not in this country or in other countries?
All around the world.
All around
the world. 4.5 trillion
I'm sure in some countries,
cigarette butts are flicked onto the
in some countries,
the pavement or the floor every day.
Yeah, well, in some countries the littering problem is much worse than it is here, although I can't think of very many, to be honest.
Yeah, turtles, fish, birds.
Turtles?
Turtles.
What are they doing
fishes,
on the road?
They're not on roads. What happens is 340,000 cigarette butts were picked up in...
These are all numbers that mean nothing. These numbers mean nothing unless you're being specific.
This is the proof. This is not me ranting on. This is the proof.
It is you ranting on.
This is the report that I've spec'd. And in one day, 340,000 cigarette butts...
Where, though?
Well, I'm about to tell you were picked up in one day on beaches in California alone.
In California?
Yeah, that was an experiment that scientists made to find out the extent of cigarette butts polluting beaches.
I'm surprised you're even allowed to smoke on beaches in California, to be honest.
These are the figures.
Well, this is unfortunately...
And they kill turtles, they kill fish, they kill birds.
It's nothing to do with me. I don't know why you're thinking
of course it's to do with you.
I haven't been to a California beach for many a year.
No, but town centre birds now take cigarette butts and they take them to line their nests.
I've never seen that.
They make good, but...
I've never seen a bird flying with a cigarette end.
But the gases given off by those cigarette butts still are poisonous to the birds, and the birds eat them when they get hungry, thinking they're food.
I'd be astonished if that's true.
No,
I would be absolutely astonished.
No, it's not, Mike. These are facts. These are facts, honest to God. These are scientific facts.
Very broad.
They're scientific facts, and not only that, they are not biodegradable. People say, "Oh no, don't worry, they're biodegradable." Well, the old-fashioned cigarette, which didn't have a filter, was completely biodegradable.
Yeah, I suppose it was.
Because it came from a plant. Yeah. Obviously, tobacco, and the paper.
Although there were some chemicals in it, though, as well, presumably.
Well, I don't think in the old days it was happening. But what I'm saying is, it would just literally turn to mush into the ground, okay? Yeah. And there was nothing wrong with
Decompose.
it. And cigarette paper was so thin that would biodegrade as well. Yeah. What doesn't biodegrade is the filter. Yeah. Because that's made up of that's made up of, what is that made up of?
It's got sort of cotton wool and stuff inside it. Or
like
something
cotton
similar.
wool, yeah, like sponge almost. Yeah, that's right. And they're not biodegradable, and they're what's destroying the world. And this all happened because...
But one of the reasons why, I suppose, and I'm not going to defend people throwing the cigarette ends away, because you shouldn't really do that.
No, of course you
shouldn't. But one of the reasons that people have so many cigarette situations going on outside is because they've been banned from smoking everywhere. So the only place they can smoke is outside. And if you're going to go to the beach, people are going to smoke on the beach, and people tend to put their cigarette ends. I mean, I try to be very careful now with cigarette ends. I put them. I'd rather take them home with me and throw them in a bin properly than just leave them lying around.
When you think of the damage that this is doing to the wildlife of this country, not just the wildlife, I mean, all sorts of things in all sorts of ways.
Well, it's not the wildlife of this country, though. You've quoted me figures from California. You've quoted me figures from around the world.
No.
You've got no figures from the UK at all.
Well, OK, I might have figures, but I have experiences. Like, every night at dusk, starlings invade Newcastle upon Tyne.
Do they?
I think they're starlings.
Really? Why do they invade Newcastle upon Tyne?
Well, they just come in from the sea and they sit on the buildings. I've seen it, a million times.
They're not seabirds, are they, starlings?
No.
Why are they coming from the sea then?
Well, I don't know. Perhaps they're coming from the land or go to the coast or something.
Well, they're there all the time. They just move around.
They're there. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you see them like they've just invaded the city at dusk every night. Okay,
very
as the lights are going down.
Flight, aren't they?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and all that. Now,
there used to be starlings in London, but they got chased away by all the magpies and the pigeons.
I bet they did. Yeah, and now
so wildlife can be a very strange and curious, cruel place.
Of course it can. And now these birds of starlings, their stomachs are being lined with cigarette butts.
I find that astonishing.
They've started picking them up.
Because the thing about animals and creatures of the wild is that they're usually quite smart about things that are bad for them.
Well, not always. I mean, ducks and things eat plastic bags. And the reason they eat them is because
they get caught up in them, don't they?
They don't get caught. No, they swallow them and they eat them.
Really?
They eat them, yeah. They think that they're some kind of amoeba or something like that. You know what I mean? They can't work out the substance of a plastic bag.
Really?
So they think it's a see-through fish. You know what I mean?
A see-through fish?
Yeah, that's right. That's what they do. And because they think it's a see-through fish, they eat them. And then, of course, nothing happens to that plastic bag except it blocks up the gullet and the stomach of a little duck or a swan or
we're still
a goose.
To see a picture of you with these ducks. So presumably it'll be something you can do over Christmas because you'll be out and about feeding the ducks quite regularly.
Of course.
Will you promise to post a picture then on social media?
Yeah, in fact, I'd like to remind everybody when they're comfortable in their warm home on Christmas Day, and apparently we're going to get a cold snap tomorrow on Christmas Eve.
It's not going to be cold enough for snow, though.
I wouldn't have thought so, but it's going to be a bit of a cold snap on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I would remind everybody to get down to the local pond or get out into your garden and feed the birds, because people forget to feed the birds on Christmas Day, thinking that it's a day off, the birds don't need feeding.
People don't feed the birds as a general rule. Not a lot of people do feed birds, do they?
They do. Loads of people feed birds. Loads of people have got one of those little things in the garden.
Like a bird feeder.
Yeah, that's right, a bird feeder, which are full of bird seed.
Food. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
that's what you put in a bird feeder.
Yeah, and birds peck at them and eat the seed. Well, some people forget to fill those up on Christmas Day.
Do they?
So I'm just trying to remind people to do so.
Have you got one of those then?
No.
Why not?
Because
you care so much about the flying fraternity. Why haven't you got a bird feeder on your lavish terrace?
The reason I haven't got a bird feeder on the lavish terrace is because it wouldn't be of any use to the birds around me.
Why not?
They live in the trees. And,
they can still come and get something to eat.
No, but they seek food in the trees, particularly woodpeckers.
In the trees?
Yeah. That's what a woodpecker does.
Well, how is that different from everywhere else where they live?
Well, the reason
they live in trees, that's where they live.
Yeah, I know.
That doesn't mean they don't need food.
Yeah. Birds are, generally speaking, only attracted to areas to get food where they can see a lawn below them.
Is that right?
And my roof terrace doesn't have a complete lawn.
I think you'd
It's
find
tiled.
if you put a bird feeder out, you would get more birds coming to
Well,
visit you.
you might, and it might be
I find it
something I may
completely
have to try.
hypocritical of you to start telling other people to feed the birds when you don't even bother.
But hang on, mate, I spend half my life feeding ducks.
Oh, so you say.
I can't do everything.
So you say.
I can't feed the whole bird population of Great Britain on the southeast of England, okay? Right?
You said that you go and feed the birds on a daily basis, right?
I try to.
Well, if you put a bird feeder out, you wouldn't have to do it, and then your conscience would be salved.
I think the birds wouldn't go to it. And anyway, sometimes the problem is if you put out a bird feeder, you attract the wrong sort of birds.
Really?
And that can be a problem. That can be a problem for the other birds
Yeah.
because, birds do attack each other and all that kind of stuff. You've got to be very careful.
That was the Two Mics podcast.
Yes, it certainly was. Don't forget, it's out every Tuesday and every Friday morning on iTunes.
And you can follow us at the Two Mics.
So keep listening for more of MG's loose morals. Believe me, this boy hasn't got a moral fibre in his body.
And more of his bizarre buffoonery.
What?